Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen steals OP's baby's name. Would I be the jerk if I changed my unborn son's name after finding out my sister is using the same name for my nephew? My husband and I, both in our 20s, chose a name for our son early in my pregnancy. We didn't tell anyone the name, but my sister, who's 30, snuck into the nursery to peek at what we had done, and she saw the name on the wall. She claimed she wanted inspiration for her baby nursery, but then decided that since our cousins were going to be born so close together, they should share the same first name. She told me it would be so cool to continue the tradition of multiple family members sharing the same name. However, my sister never shared a name with a cousin. She had a family name where she was the only living person in the family with it. On the other hand, I shared a name with 3 cousins and an uncle, and I hated it. I chose to use my middle name because it was unique within the family. Not unique in general, just to clarify, but nobody else in the family had it. So I used my middle name more often than my first name, although some family members still refused to call me anything but my first name. When my husband and I learned that my sister had decided to use the name that we picked, we were both disappointed. We started talking about changing the name, feeling that we wanted something different for our son. Eventually, we scrapped the original name and covered it up in the nursery. A few days ago, my sister and mom saw the finished nursery. My sister asked about the name and said she was hurt that we were changing it. She had been so excited about the cousins sharing a name. I told her that I wanted my son to have a name that wasn't shared with anyone else in the family. My mom chimed in, saying she thought it was wonderful to have multiple family members with the same name, thinking it was a special connection. I disagreed, and they both said I was overreacting. They claimed it was mean to change my son's name after my sister had gotten so excited about it. My husband pointed out that my family has an issue with boundaries and accepting differing opinions. Looking back, I realize he's right. It even shows in how some family members refuse to accept my chosen name, the way my sister snooped in the nursery, and how she chose the name without even asking if I'd be okay with it. Would I be the jerk though? I keep getting texts from my sister saying I should not change the name. Not the jerk. Your husband is exactly right. Your family is deranged with their level of boundary stomping. It is really not cool for your sister to have made this choice, essentially forcing this conformity on you that you don't want. The saving grace is that she's pregnant now, and not in a year from now when it would be more complex for you to change your kid's name to prevent this. To me, this would be enough to make me want to go low contact with my family. I just would not feel comfortable sharing anything with them. Today I messed up by stealing more McDonald's caramel sauce than any one person could consume in a dozen lifetimes. When I was a teenager, I used to live not far from a McDonald's. I was on the high school swim team, and practices were held at the horrible hour of 5 a.m. My parents weren't too enthusiastic about dropping me off that early, so I had to wake up at 4 a.m. just to bike there. Cutting through a gap in the fence of the McDonald's parking lot saved me a couple of blocks, so I'd push my bike through the hedge and continue my sad, lonely journey. Several times, I noticed huge stacks of buns and supplies outside the store's side entrance early in the morning. It seemed like there was a regular drop-off, probably non-perishables. I never checked, but I assumed perishables like meat, eggs, and produce had some other delivery method. The timing was odd, but maybe the truck had an early route, and that was just the first store. I never asked, and you'll see why. One day, I saw a stack of number 10 cans among the supply pallets. When I got closer, I saw that they were filled with McDonald's caramel syrup, the same gooey sauce they used for their sundaes. I loved that stuff. It was amazing. Being just after 4 a.m. and not thinking clearly, I decided to take one to school and share it with my swim team mates. We'd eat it with spoons, and it would be the best day ever. Then it hit me. What if we ate all the syrup? Then there would be none left for me when I wanted ice cream at home. Who was I to deny my family their share of tasty caramel sundaes? The solution? Zip home, grab something more cargo-friendly than my tricked-out Schwinn, and return for the rest. 5 minutes later, our family's Dodge Dart was loaded down with 10 number 10 cans of caramel syrup. I drove it home as quietly as possible, unloaded the cans, hid them, and then rushed back to school on my bike. Stealing what must have been a couple of months' worth of sundae topping for a single McDonald's was probably a pretty big mistake on its own, but there were consequences, and plenty of them. The first problem I encountered was how to actually open one of those cans. You can't exactly eat from a giant can without somewhere to store the rest of it. I could maybe handle a few spoonfuls at a time, but any more than that, and the syrup started to taste awful. Deliciously awful, but still awful. So there I was, stuck with a mostly full number 10 can of caramel syrup and no idea what to do with it. On my first attempt to enjoy the caramel, I decided to pour the rest down my family's bathroom sink. Fun fact, Caramel syrup does not go down a sink easily. It clogged up almost immediately, leaving me with a sink filled a third of the way with syrup and a growing line of siblings pounding on the door, needing to use the bathroom. Running hot water helped a little, diluting the syrup in the sink, but doing nothing for the enormous glob clogging the P-trap. Even the plunger was useless. In a panic, I used my hands to transfer as much syrup as I could from the sink to the toilet, flushing it down as fast as the tank could refill. With the sink mostly empty, I attempted to clean up the mess. Unfortunately, all the cleaning supplies were in the linen closet, outside the bathroom. I didn't dare use the towels. Mom would have been furious, so I tried cleaning the sticky surfaces with toilet paper. Turns out, caramel syrup sticks to countertops, toilet seats, walls, and floors much better than it sticks to toilet paper. All I managed to do was smear a layer of Charmin over everything between the sink and the toilet. Faced with angry siblings pounding on the door, I opened it. My older brother took one look at the scene and exclaimed, "Holy cow, what were you doing in here? Did you go to the bathroom in the sink?" To be fair, it was a reasonable assumption given the smears all over the place. Which brings me to the real mistake. I just went with it. Somehow it seemed easier to admit to blowing out the sink's pipes that way, rather than to explain the stolen caramel syrup. I don't remember what excuse I made, something like, "Yeah, the toilet was clogged, so I had no choice." But it was enough for my brothers, who accepted my story and started teasing me about it. For many years, I was that weird cousin who did this in the sink. Family gatherings became an opportunity for my siblings and cousins to warn each other, "Don't let him use the bathroom or he'll use your sink." Of course, I couldn't defend myself by saying it was just a lot of caramel syrup. That would have required far too much awkward explanation. There was another, less impactful consequence. When I bragged about my heist to a few friends, one of them pointed out that those number 10 cans were probably really expensive. After doing some quick math, we realized I had committed what could technically be considered a grand theft in caramel syrup. Horrified at the potential legal implications, we opened just one more can, each ate until we felt sick, and then we dumped the rest in the woods. Somewhere, an entire colony of ants probably worships the day caramel rained from the heavens. Finally, realizing I had committed a felony over a sugar rush, I decided to stop cutting through the McDonald's parking lot. Being the one kid biking past a McDonald's at 4:30 a.m. every day suddenly felt like a bad idea. Surely, someone eventually would have figured out what was going on. With that realization, I quit the swim team. It wasn't a big loss though. I was a terrible swimmer, and I hated waking up that early anyway. My friends didn't invite me to their wedding, then made me the bad guy. A friend of mine, Greg, who's 28, met Shannon, also 28, about 5 years ago, and they instantly hit it off. Everybody immediately fell in love with Shannon because she's friendly and really fun to hang out with. They were everyone's favorite couple and genuinely made our hangouts much more enjoyable. We all knew they were perfect for each other, and together they made our group that much better. When they got engaged, it wasn't surprising, but it was definitely welcome news. Our circle was buzzing about the inevitable wedding, and then the invitations went out. You know, those save the dates magnets that people send out? Well, it really sucked seeing them on everyone else's fridge when I visited, knowing I hadn't got one. I wasn't invited. Feeling left out like that was awful, but it got worse. I completely understand how stressful wedding planning is, and I believe no one should feel obligated to invite people they don't want at their wedding. It's their day, and they should be surrounded by the people they truly care about. I didn't cause a fuss or express to anyone that I felt hurt or excluded. I didn't want to seem like I was causing trouble or making things worse by voicing my feelings, but one of my friends actually stood up for me. When the wedding came up in conversations, people were talking about booking flights and rooms. It was a destination wedding in New York City. Eventually, I was asked if I had booked yet. I simply replied, we, my girlfriend and I, weren't invited. Nobody could believe it. Still, I insisted I wasn't upset because I understand how these situations can go. I didn't want to cause any trouble because I knew that if I did, Greg and Shannon might resent me, and then I'd really be the bad guy. I later heard from other friends that Tracy, another friend of ours, thought it was really messed up that I wasn't invited. We never spoke about it directly, but apparently she made her feelings clear to others in the group. Then about a month before the wedding, I got a text from Greg saying they were sorry for forgetting to send an invite and that they'd love for us to come. But it was way too late at that point. I couldn't get away from work, and since I hadn't received a save the date like everyone else, I hadn't set aside money for an expensive New York City wedding. Flights and hotels, especially at that point, were all way too expensive. Plus, there were no rooms left where everyone else was staying. I texted him back saying I couldn't make it. The wedding came and went, and honestly, I felt terrible. I saw all the Facebook pictures of my friends having the time of their lives. It looked like a great wedding, and there was even a picture of the group labeled The Crew. I don't think I've ever felt so left out. It made me feel worthless and unwanted. Naturally, the typical thoughts started swirling in my head. They don't like you. They think you're annoying. They think you're a jerk. If you can't identify the schmuck in a group of friends, that means you're it. They think you try too hard to be nice, and they see you as a phony. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Shannon messaged me on Facebook asking why I didn't RSVP and saying they missed me at the wedding. RSVP? You can't RSVP if you're not invited. Everyone else had a year to prepare between receiving save the dates and actual invitations. I got a text message a month before the wedding. As I feared, I ended up looking like the bad guy, even though I made a point to keep my feelings to myself and play it cool. But of course, I didn't say that to Shannon. I apologized, though I'm not even sure what I was apologizing for, and mentioned that I had spoken with Greg about it. I even complimented the wedding pictures, saying they looked like a lot of fun. I did everything I could in that conversation to make it easier on her, and now I feel like a total schmuck for doing so. That all happened last summer, and I haven't seen Greg or Shannon since. It feels like I'm done with the group now. I see some of my other friends occasionally, but everything feels different. Nobody even responded to my birthday party invite on Facebook this month. It feels like they're sending a passive-aggressive message. Maybe Greg and Shannon never actually liked me. My fiance is confused because she gets along great with Shannon and has never had any issues. Seeing her confusion just breaks my heart even more because she's such a sweetheart who never offended anyone in her life. I feel like I need to break it to her that I'm just the guy in the group, the one Greg and Shannon think sucks. But I don't know how to tell her, and I just feel like a complete loser who deserves this. I'll always appreciate Tracy for sticking up for me. She may never know how much it meant to hear that she thought it was wrong I wasn't invited. I haven't even spoken to her about how the whole thing made me feel, or to anyone else for that matter, because I didn't want to seem like I was making a stink and risk being disliked even more. This whole thing just sucks. I feel like I don't have friends anymore, and now I'm worried about my own wedding. I'm scared I won't have anyone to invite, except for Tracy, of course. How do I even handle the guest list without it seeming like I'm leaving people out of spite? How do I navigate this toxic situation that I didn't create in the first place? I feel like I'm in the dark, or maybe just overreacting. What am I supposed to do? Update. I took everyone's advice halfway and talked to Tracy. She confirmed what I feared. Shannon was full of it when she asked why I didn't RSVP. She was just trying to absolve herself of guilt. Tracy said we'd talk more about it after work tonight. Final update. It turns out Greg's best man, someone who was never part of our group but grew up with Greg, has always hated me. Greg thinks I'm annoying, and Shannon later felt guilty about leaving me out. She pressured Greg to invite me via text, knowing full well I wouldn't be able to make it. It wasn't just Tracy who thought it was wrong either. She only messaged me about RSVPing to make it look like my invite got lost in the mail or something. In the end, it does feel a little bit better knowing the truth. I've always believed they have the right to invite whoever they want to their wedding, but finding out Greg never liked me still hurts. I thought we were friends, but it turns out he's the phony one. Sadly, most of the group, except for Tracy and a few others, likes Greg more than me, so they've stuck by him. It feels like some of them were forced to choose sides when the issue came up. I guess it's because they've known Greg for longer. They all went to high school together. That's life, I guess. But thanks to everyone for the advice and about being more assertive. Those of you who were polite about it were especially helpful. Thanks again. Am I the jerk for telling my brother he betrayed Mom, so why would he get half of everything? My mom passed a few months ago, and she left my brother, who's in his 40s, some money. But I, also in my 40s, got most of what she owned. Some background to explain why my mom did this and why my brother is angry. My mom was an only child for 16 years, and she always wanted to get involved in her dad's business. However, he wanted a son to take over the family business. He was determined to have a son one way or another, and even though my mom was prepared to leave school and work for him, by the time her brother came along, her dad made it very clear that even if there was no son, he would never let her work for him or take over the business. He would rather see the business close. This destroyed my mom. She loved her parents but felt deeply rejected. However, my mom's dad didn't get his way because her brother wanted nothing to do with the business. He refused to work for him, let alone take over. This led to my mom being estranged from her dad for many years. Her dad made it painfully clear that he didn't value her and he never would, so my mom stepped back. When he found out my mom had a son, he reached out to her. When that didn't work, he waited until my brother turned 18, offering him a job and the chance to run the family business. My mom was shocked. My brother told her not to tell him what to do as he didn't like the fact that she kept us from our grandfather and prevented him from running the business due to the estrangement. Mom and my brother had a talk. She told him she didn't want him to grow up to be like her dad. My brother basically told her to buzz off and went to work for our grandfather. Years passed, and he eventually regretted the strain between him and Mom. Even our dad was disgusted with him. After our father passed, my brother reached out and apologized, telling Mom he loved her. However, things were never the same. He often talked about our grandfather like he was some amazing hero, which was incredibly difficult for my mom given their history. When my mom made her will, she decided that I should inherit most of her estate, while my brother would get something, but not an equal share. She felt this was fair since my brother had the business and seemed perfectly fine with her being shut out from it. Now that she's gone, my brother is hurt and angry. He asked me how she could have done this and why I wasn't angry. I told him that he betrayed her, so why would he get half? He tried to deny it, but I reminded him that he went to work for her dad anyway, told her to get lost, and even when they reconciled, he still acted like the man who treated her terribly was some amazing person who deserved constant praise. He accused me of attacking him for no reason. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He's not entitled to more than your mom decided to leave him, and considering the state of the relationship and how he insisted on praising the man who treated her like that, it's pure generosity on her part that she left him anything. Or maybe because certain areas have laws that you can't sue for more of the estate if you were left a certain portion. I played my fiance in chess for iPhone location and she lost. When we first started dating, we exchanged locations because she asked for it so we could build trust, and I agreed because I have nothing to hide. Time goes by, and it seems the location caused more issues than trust. Yes, it did build trust. She knows I'm a man that goes straight from work to home and don't deviate anywhere, but there's still doubt that she has. The issues I see are that she obsesses over my exact location. I'll be home working on my car, organizing my trunk, cleaning work equipment, etc. in the apartment building complex garage, and I'll get a text, "You must prefer being in your car instead of coming up to me," or "I see you got home and decided to walk your dog instead of coming upstairs to give me love. I see you went to McDonald's. You haven't left home to go to work yet?" Some of these comments annoy me because I feel controlled, especially when there's a perfectly good reason for why I do what I do. I always have a good reason, and she says, "Oh, okay." Recently, we argued, and she mentioned that she doesn't trust me, so I got angry and said, "Well, if you don't trust me, then I'm removing the location, because then what's the point?" Which I did. She just said that sometimes she says things she doesn't mean, but that's the point I'm trying to make, to show her not to say those things if she doesn't mean them because there's consequences. I have no problem giving her my location, but the reason she wants my location is so she can obsess about my exact coordinates. She says she wants my location so she can know where I'm at in case something happens to me, like an emergency. I'm 29 years old, nothing has ever happened to me, and my mother has never asked for my location, so I don't find that excuse good enough. Early in our relationship, she taught me how to play chess, so she has way more experience than me, and I've only really played against her. She challenged me to a game of chess, and the winner gets what they want. She assumed she would win since I had never won a game against her. I told her, if you lose my location forever, or until we have kids. I didn't think I would beat her in chess. Last night, she put out the chessboard, and well, I won, and she's upset now because she's still requesting my location. I told her that I loved her, but she needed to keep her word. She's the one that challenged me, she's the one who pulled out the chessboard, and now she doesn't like the results, and that's not my problem. Am I the jerk for removing my iPhone GPS location and now denying her that privilege since she lost fair and square? You're the jerk to yourself for staying in a relationship with her. If she still doesn't trust you after your willingness to share your location and turning your location share into an obsession, then she never will. She needs to seek professional help. She's the jerk for being so immature and acting like a toddler when she doesn't get her way. Mom wants me to buy a house closer to hers because she doesn't like driving 20 minutes to see her grandchild. When I, 36, met my fiance, who's also 36, we hit it off quickly. We were on the same wavelength, and by chance lived close to one another, so we could easily spend lots of time together. After just 6 months, I was ready to move into her apartment with my dog. Sadly, her landlord said no because of the dog. In hindsight, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise. We realized that buying a condo would cost almost as much as buying a house, given the current market in Canada, so we ended up looking for a house instead. My first instinct was to search around where I grew up, close to my mom. There were lots of parks, which made my childhood pretty awesome, and I imagined something similar for our future family. However, it quickly became evident that our budget of $575K, including renovations, wouldn't cut it. I tried 100 times to explain to my fiance that borrowing $25K from her would make a big difference in our options. But she shot me down every time, even laughing when I suggested we wouldn't be able to buy in her neighborhood. I wasn't asking for a gift. I always said I would pay her back. The intent behind the loan was to help us stay above water during the first few years. Eventually, I found a home last year that fit within our budget. Shockingly, on the island of Montreal where I work. We both thought we'd never find a place there. The house is fairly old but spacious, with a backyard and enough rooms for 2 kids. We've just had our first. When my mom learned about the house, she freaked out. For the first time in my life, her attitude was what I can only describe as toxic. She hated the house and essentially said it was a mistake. She insulted everything about it, and by proxy, me for buying it, without directly calling me an idiot, but implying it in every way possible. She wanted me to live 5 minutes away, but now I live 20 minutes away, 45 minutes during rush hour. In over a year, she's only stayed for dinner once. Every time I invite her, she has an excuse for why she can't make it. She often calls on weekends, asking me to bring the baby to her house, but when I suggest she come to our place instead, she always has something to do. Gardening, things in the backyard. She rarely ends up coming over. Last weekend we had brunch, and she complained about not seeing her granddaughter enough. I reminded her that she's welcome to drop in anytime, not just on weekends. She said she couldn't come on weekdays because she works. My mom is 68. She's worked 45 years as a secretary at the same hospital. She's the oldest worker there, has her pension fully paid off, and lots of days off. Her boss loves her, and she can take an afternoon or a day off anytime to spend with us. So I pointed that out, and she claims she's not the type of person to leave her coworkers hanging by taking days off. She just came back from a 2-week vacation in Greece. Finally, I snapped and said she'd see her grandchild more often when we're no longer last in priority behind her coworkers, her job, her gardening, a sunny day in her backyard, and a 20-minute drive. She seemed insulted by that. Then yesterday, she sent me a listing for a house 5 minutes from hers. If you're interested, there's a house for sale on Francis Street for $500K. It's pretty. 3 rooms, 2 bathrooms. You can take a look. No? Why would we get back into house hunting just a year after buying our current place? We'll only consider moving if we need a second floor and outgrow this house with 2 kids. It has 3 rooms on the same floor and 2 renovated bathrooms. Not quite the same as your current house since you have more money to invest. But I just wanted you to take a look. Fine, I'll mind my own business. Have a good day. Are you kidding me? She wouldn't loan me $25K, and now she expects me to spend $500,000 just so she doesn't have to drive to see her grandkids? My dad, my fiance's family, they all live further away, but they visit way more often. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my pregnant girlfriend because I don't want to be a father? I, 25 male, had been with my ex, 23 female, for a little over 3 months. I always took all the precautions necessary. She was on birth control. I wanted to avoid having a baby. I've known for a long time that I don't want to have any kids of my own. I find them annoying, and they would severely limit my ability to do things I enjoy. Traveling, outdoor stuff, etc. Unfortunately for me, she's now pregnant. The first thing I did was suggest not having it. I offered to pay for her flight and hotel, and I told her I'd be happy to come with her to get it done. I have a stable job and I make good money, so it wouldn't be too much of a hit for me. She works as a receptionist and doesn't make a lot, so I figured it would be better for me to pay. That's when she told me she was hoping to keep it and that she wanted me to help her raise the kid as its father. I have no intention of being a father. Beyond just my dislike of kids, I'm not ready for that. I made it very clear that I didn't want the baby, but she kept insisting that I'd have a change of heart once it's born and to just try it out. After a long exchange, I told her that if she intended to keep the baby, I would not act as a father. I broke up with her and told her that I would pay child support once it's born, but that I expect her to respect my wishes and keep the kid away from me. Since then, she's been frantically texting me, begging me to come back and telling me she'll forgive me. She sent me voicemails crying. It does hurt to see, but I haven't responded. The other day, she texted me, saying how she can't raise the kid alone and how I'm basically forcing her to not have it by just leaving. She ended the text, begging me to talk again. I certainly feel crappy. I really liked her and we had a good relationship before this, but I just don't want to be a father. I'm already bitter about the fact that I'll have to pay child support for 18 years, which will somewhat limit me financially. I also feel it isn't right for a parent who doesn't want their kid to be involved. I just end up taking it out on them, which I feel isn't right. With all this said, I came here to ask, am I the jerk? I certainly feel like one, but I also stand by what I said. Edit. On the topic of having vasectomy, I tried. I met with a doctor last year and asked about getting one done, but he refused and said every doctor he knows won't do it until I'm at least 30. Update 1. I've hired one of the better family court lawyers in my state. She has someone representing her pro bono. It has been made clear to my ex and her representative that she's not to contact me personally and that all contact will go through my lawyer from now on. A paternity test is scheduled for next Wednesday. I don't know how long it will take to get the results, but the test is happening. If the kid is mine, we will go to court to determine child support payments and will set up the process for me to sign away my rights. On providing emotional support and getting back together with the ex. I don't want to give her emotional support and lead her on. If I'm around, she'll think I plan to get back together and be a present father, which I don't want. She should know I don't want the kid. That way, she's more likely to go through with not having it or adoption. I also don't want to be present for the birth for similar reasons. Plus, I'm pretty certain that even if I did change my mind on the kid, I wouldn't want to be with her. She expects me to get back together with her to raise the kid. But if I did end up seeing the kid and wanting her, I'd have to go through some annoying legal procedure to try and secure joint custody or something. This is a mess in so many ways that it isn't worth suffering through. I'm still certain I don't want the kid, but if I suddenly changed my mind to want the kid and then didn't get any custody, that would be pretty depressing. I'd rather just stay unattached and deal with any regrets I have later. About my parents, yes, they want grandkids. They've been hounding me ever since I turned 20 about when I'm going to give them grandkids. I've already told them I don't want kids, and my sister's not going to be having any, so they're disappointed at this point. If they found out about the kid and that I was leaving, they would be furious, so I'm just not telling them. About how I'll feel in the future, I honestly cannot say 100%. I know that right now I 100% don't want kids, and I'm going off that feeling to assume how I'll feel in the future will be the same. Everyone lives with some level of regret, so I've come to peace with the idea that if I end up regretting this, I'll just have to move on and live with that like everyone else. If for some reason I felt regret, I wouldn't try to contact the kid. I'd just keep it to myself and keep chugging along like usual. If the kid does find me one day, I'll just be honest depending on how I'm feeling. Either, I was 25 and I didn't want kids, and I still don't. Sorry. Or, I was 25 and I thought I didn't want kids. I wasn't ready. It's been one of the biggest regrets of my life, and I'm sorry. Depending on how I'm feeling, most likely the former. I don't know what gave you the impression that I've softened to the idea of having kids. I still firmly don't want any. I just feel pity for the kid, cause it's not really their fault. I don't exactly feel good about leaving the kid on a moral level, but on a more personal of what is best for me, I feel very confident in leaving. It's certainly a selfish decision, but I've been upfront with the fact that I'm a selfish person. I feel bad about it, but I'm putting myself and my own personal needs first in this situation by doing what I think is best for me. I feel for this woman, but this is a 3-month relationship, and she's devastated that this man doesn't want to be a father? It would be so much worse having him around when he's going to be angry, bitter, and resentful. Everything about this sucks, but talking him into it is the last thing she will want in 5 years. She sounds completely delusional, as she hasn't heard anything that he said. They only dated 3 months. He broke up with her, and she thinks he's going to propose? Every time there's a post from a mom whose partner very clearly has no interest in being a dad, but she plans to stay with him anyway, for the kids, people correctly tell her what a terrible idea that is. But here's this guy doing everything in his power to prevent that exact scenario from playing out, and people are losing their minds. Being raised by a single parent who loves and is committed to the kid is so much better for them than being raised in a 2-parent household where one of the parents does not want to be there. I was a single mom at 20, and it was so much better than the co-parenting crap that some of my friends and family members had and still have going on. She'll get the child support from him. That's more than what most single parents get. My own kid's biological father never paid a cent. She'll manage, if she can get over the delusion that biological dad wants anything to do with her and the baby. The first 3 years are kind of horrible, but they are with or without a partner. But it gets easier and easier as time goes on, and I haven't had any regret of my decision to keep my baby. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law to get out of my house and stay at a hotel? My wife, 43 female, and I, 40 male, have been married for 18 years, and for the entirety of our marriage, I've had a great relationship with her parents. Both of them were Marines, and so was I, so we get along from the get-go. My mother-in-law lives in California, where I met my wife, and we live in Florida now. My wife is very close to her family, which is foreign to me. My family was never really close. My dad is a textbook covert narcissist and my mom always went with what he said. So because I wouldn't put up with his BS, I was the black sheep for a while. Mother-in-law was always welcome over, and I even paid for her to fly here to surprise my wife once or twice. The only downfall is when she would come, she would stay for a month or two, but it never caused a problem until last year. Incident. Last June was my oldest daughter's sweet 16, so my mother-in-law came out in May to help plan the party, and as usual, she stayed with us. We have a big enough house, but my wife's cousin is also staying with us while she goes to school, so it was a little cramped to say the least. Anyway, she cooked, cleaned, and helped out with groceries and even our laundry. It was great for the first couple of months, but then August rolled around and she became snippy, and her not-so-nice side started to show. She started complaining about little things and started moving things and rearranging things to suit her. We just brushed all that off. I started getting irritated when she and my wife kept bugging me about upgrading my TV. I bought a 55-inch Vizio LED in 2009 when they first started becoming affordable, and it still works great. I'm a simple guy. My pride and joy, other than my daughter's, is my '73 Jeep, which I restored on my own. Anyway, I finally just said to heck with it and let her do it. Fast forward a few weeks, and she came home from grocery shopping one day and immediately started on us. She said she texted my wife and daughter to open the garage for her, but my daughter wasn't home and my wife's phone was on silent. We brushed it off and helped her bring the groceries in. Then she saw a dish on the kitchen counter that was dirty and not put in the sink, and she started complaining about how our kids don't do enough and we aren't raising them right. That's when I lost it. She and I started on each other while my wife sat in the other room and didn't say a word. Her two 30-plus-year-old sons live with her, so I went off. My daughters are A and B honors students in high school and are already either working or playing sports all the time. Finally, I told her if she doesn't like how we live and raise them, she can get out and stay at a hotel. She went to a hotel 2 days later, and I haven't heard from her since. I texted her on Christmas, New Year's, her birthday, and other times, just saying I love her and I hope she's doing well. She hasn't responded once. Am I the jerk for going off on her, or was I right for standing my ground? Not the jerk. Mother-in-law needs to understand that even if she gets to stay for several months, she's still a guest in your house and should behave like a guest, not like she owns the place. She probably feels you owe her an apology, which you don't, at least not unless she's willing to apologize too, and you have made the first step to patch things up several times. How does your wife feel about the whole situation, and is her mom still talking to her? OP. My wife took her side and said I should have handled it better. I agree, but it kind of bugs me that she didn't say anything to her. They still talk on a regular basis. Karen keeps dropping her kids off at my place for me to babysit, even after I told her not to. I, 30 female, live with my husband and my pets. Unfortunately, both me and my hubby are infertile, so no kids, and instead we help out with my brother and sister-in-law's kids, who are 4 and 1. I'm a freelance web developer, but I work remotely from my home, and the timing is very flexible, hence why I'm able to divert more care towards my nieces. My brother and sister-in-law make just about enough to cut even and can't exactly afford exorbitant childcare costs and would rather allocate their funds to the kids' medical and school fees. I've been babysitting these kids ever since the oldest was born, and now I also handle the care of the younger one. However, recently, something really dreadful happened. That is, I lost one of my closest friends, and in a really bad way too. Don't want to divulge many details. I've been in a really bad place since then, and the whole emotional fatigue has made me not even want to attend to work, which is why I specifically took a 2-week leave to rest and come to terms with my emotions. Sadly, my brother, feigning sympathy at first, said, "Get some rest," and then did the exact opposite by dropping off my nieces when I specifically told him I need some time for myself. He and my sister-in-law then countered, saying that looking after my nieces would help me take my mind off of things and that it was too short of a notice. The thing is, I barely have any energy usually when the kids are over. I also take charge of the cooking, cleaning up after the younger one. I have no such energy to look after them. Like as of now, I can barely even attend to my own needs. It's also a safety issue. The kids need constant monitoring, especially with my younger niece. Now my brother and sister-in-law are threatening me, saying that if I'm not willing to babysit for the next 2 weeks, I should refund them monetarily so that they can find childcare because of the short notice. I don't understand. Was I supposed to predict my friend's demise or something? Looks like my only option is to pay them back monetarily for the childcare costs to lay them off my back. My husband thinks it's cruel of them to make me pay, but my brother says I'm being selfish and only thinking everything revolves around my problems. I'm really torn and burned out from all of this. I just need a break. I did lash out on them for calling me selfish, and I've yet to apologize. Do provide judgment on if they are fair. If so, then I'd be willing to compensate them. Edit. Sorry for not including this in the post. I do not get paid to watch my nieces. I have volunteered since my first niece was born because of my flexible work hours. Thank you for the kind words and judgment, by the way. I'm reading through all of it. Grateful to all of you. Not the jerk, they are way out of line. You gave them the equivalent of $25,000 plus in childcare for free, and they are demanding you pay when you need to take a break? What if you got sick and went to the hospital? They would expect you to pay them then also? And your arrangement, if it's no longer working for you, you have been more than generous. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her brother and his wife? Please let us know. Sometimes you give someone an inch and they'll take a mile. Don't give them a dime. Boss did not like the look of the bulk mailing stamp, told me to remove it. Cost the company over $220,000. Back in the 1980s, I worked for a sporting goods company as a catalog designer. Small company, privately owned. I was the entire advertising department. I created 4 catalogs a year. These were responsible for most of our mail order sales, pre-internet, to the tune of around $700,000 a year. We sent the catalogs via bulk mail using a mailing service. This let us send them for a much discounted price. To do this required the use of a bulk mail permit and placing the permit info on the mailing area of the catalog. Technically, it's called a fiche. Enter new boss. We'll call him Ron. I was number 1, the only one in my department. For some reason, the company owner hired Ron as a favor to a friend. From day one, he was micromanaging, questioning everything, and messing up my very tight schedule. This was before computers were common. Everything was by hand, literally typing out copy and reducing it on a photocopier to fit. Developing the photo film myself, making prints, etc. The actual printer had to add screens to the photos so that they'd print, burn metal plates, and so on. All time-consuming and expensive. Deadlines could not be missed, so I was stuck with several 16-hour days come crunch time. I was complaining to the owner, but he really couldn't care less. I really wanted to stick it to Ron, and the opportunity presented itself. Constant threats of, "My way or you're fired," were getting to me. The latest pre-summer catalog was done. Summer was our big season. I had to give him my mock-up, photocopied sheets stapled together, of the final catalog for his approval. A new step added after he demanded it. He looked at it and sent it back with several pointless revisions, and a note to remove that ugly permit box because it was not needed. Where he worked previously stuffed their mailers in envelopes. The envelopes had the fiche, but their mailer did this last step. I simply asked him to initial the changes as this was the final approved version and was going to be on the printer the next day. There was no time to check it again, so he did. I knew it would be a total mess and something I never would have done in the past. 50,000 catalogs printed and shipped directly to the mailer. The day they arrive at the mailer, the boss gets a call from the sales rep. "We can't mail your catalogs." Boss storms into my area of the building and is literally screaming. Ron is now upset and yelling at me, joined by the boss. Their veins are bulging as they're screaming. Minimum 2-week delay, wasted money, lost sales. I explained what happened, the threat to fire me, and showed the owner the changes to the final copy, initialed by Ron. He was going to give Ron a second chance until the bill came in from the printer. They had to stamp 50,000 catalogs by hand. We had to rent their permit since that's what was on their stamp. Rental and labor was almost $8,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's $20,000. Plus, our early summer sales boost was off by almost $50,000 from previous years, or $200,000 adjusted for inflation. Ron was fired. I was left alone after that. Am I the jerk for telling my husband I'm not ready for his family to meet our new son? My husband, 33 male, and I, 32 female, just welcomed our second kid 2 months ago. We also have a 3-year-old daughter. This pregnancy was a lot more difficult for me than my first. I had complications and had to take an early maternity leave from work because my doctor recommended bed rest. Thankfully, everything with the delivery went fine and our son is healthy and happy. In order to help while I was on bed rest, my mom came to stay with us. She came when I was about 8 months pregnant, right when I went into bed rest. She also stayed after the birth and just recently moved back home a week or so ago. It was so helpful having her here, and I'm forever grateful for it. However, my husband could not have been happier to see her leave. He expressed to me numerous times that he feels my mom is overbearing and that she inserts herself into every situation under the guise of helping. He says he felt marginalized in both his roles as husband and father the entire time she was here. I will admit that my mom can be very protective and almost overcaring, if that makes sense. She has a strong motherly instinct, and I can kind of see how it would rub my husband the wrong way. I was not in a position to fight either one of them on anything, so I told my husband he's just going to have to deal with it and that it's short term. He was so happy to see her leave, I'm surprised he didn't throw himself a little party. Now that my mom is gone, he wants his parents to come visit. They live far enough away that they would have to fly here. I told my husband that I'm not ready for visitors and that now that I am more recovered, I want to spend time with just my family and bond. Instead of being supportive of my needs, he took offense and pretty much threw it in my face that I was okay with my mom being here for 3 months, and now I won't even let his family meet their grandkid. He accused me of having double standards and even asked if I hate his parents, which I absolutely do not. I just want to spend some time with my family before having anyone else come visit. My husband argued that his parents would be getting a hotel anyway, so it's not like they would be staying with us. He just wants them to meet his new son. I told him that I am not forbidding his family from ever meeting our son, but that now is not a good time. He asked when a good time would be, and I told him that I will tell him when I'm ready for them to come. He told me that he's tired of living his life based completely on my timelines and needs. He said that at some point, what he wants should at least matter a little bit, instead of me constantly dictating the terms of our life. I told him that when he experiences a difficult pregnancy and birth, then he can dictate things. But until then, my needs matter more than his wants. He's now barely speaking to me. He will do things I ask and help with whatever I need, but it's like he's on autopilot and sulking because he can't get what he wants. You're the jerk. You will admit that your mom can be very overprotective and almost overcaring? That sounds like enabler speak for, my mom completely steamrolled my husband while she was here, and I'm just going to ignore his valid complaints about that because I don't want to hear them. You do not get to plead that you need time with your immediate family when you're completely shutting out the wants and needs of your partner and establishing that family, especially if the reason you need that time is because of a situation you set up and refuse to allow him to do anything to manage in a way that would have made it more bearable for him. If you're not going to allow a visit from his family now, and I'll be honest, I see no good reason for you to forbid that when they're not even staying with you, you need to be willing to go to counseling with him to figure out how these situations are going to be handled in the future. Because he's right, the double standard is real, and it's ugly. I'm going to try to be as graceful here as I can, because I also had a difficult pregnancy last year that put me in the hospital for 2 weeks, bed rest, and then a very painful C-section that has led me to never wanting another biological kid. So yes, I understand. But you're the jerk. Your husband is an equal parent to your son. His concerns and wants matter just as much as yours. He isn't asking for his family to stay like your mother did, and isn't even asking that you accommodate room and board for them. He only wants his parents to meet your shared son for what I'm guessing is a few days. I do get wanting your own little family time because my husband and I did that too. But you're treating his wishes to have his family meet your son like it's a burden. Frankly, the whole post makes it sound as though you see him as a burden. He's not sulking because he can't get what he wants. He's realizing that you don't care for his wants and needs like he's an equal partner or a parent. It's heartbreaking. I'd like to kindly add, and I truly mean kindly, that it might be a good idea to get yourself into therapy for possible postpartum depression and/or anxiety. Even if you don't have either, it can only benefit you both to work through whatever is making you not want his family to meet your son. And maybe it can help you to extend more empathy to your husband. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Yowza kanowza! I can't wait to read the comments we get on this one. Manager told me I was fired as a joke, so I quit. I worked for a car dealership as a lot partner. I had gotten into an accident that totaled my car right as I was purchasing a house, which led to a predicament because you don't want to buy a new car while you're paying a house. Shortly after buying the house, I found a different job in a field I love. So I put in my 2 weeks notice, and then I went and bought from a different dealership because my wife wanted a specific car that my dealership did not sell. I also knew how slimy the one I worked for was. A few days after the purchase of both house and car, one of the sales managers asked me if I was ready to buy a car from him. I didn't disclose the fact to anyone that I bought from a different dealer. I informed him I already had bought one, so he looks at me in the most serious face and asks if I wanted to pack my things, basically because I wasn't loyal to this dealership. Knowing I already had a better job that was able to start me immediately, I said sure. So he immediately started laughing and told me he was joking and how they would never fire anyone for going somewhere else. But I already knew a few people that had gotten fired for that exact reason. I told him I don't appreciate being fired as a joke because first, I do have a 1.5-year-old, and if I didn't have a job lined up, it could have seriously hurt me financially. But I ended up leaving feeling relieved because this was not a good job. The funny thing is, he called me about 30 to 45 minutes after I had left because I had left keys to multiple brand new trucks in my desk that had to have the plastic removed and get parked. Turns out, since he fired me, they made him take care of the stuff. I'm now fully enjoying my new job with the best bosses I've ever had. I know I probably took it too far, but I don't regret it. Edit. There were a few good sales managers that really cared, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but the job got too tiring because of the bad ones. Am I the jerk for refusing to house my wife's daughter after she refused to house mine? My wife and I have been married for 10 years, second marriage for both of us. I have a 19-year-old daughter from my previous marriage, while she has a 26-year-old daughter with her late husband. We both agreed to not discipline each other's kids and that we wouldn't be a parental figure for either of them. Last year, my daughter left for college. A senior from her same university was offering a room for cheapish, so she decided to move in, and aside from when she was at class, my daughter was home 100% of the time, and the roommate for some reason was mad at this. She ended up making my daughter feel bad and uncomfortable to the point she decided to move out earlier than she had to. She asked me for help since I'm the one who lives closer. My ex and I asked my wife if my daughter could come live with us for a month while we got her another place. She said no, because for her, my daughter was running from being an adult, that we shouldn't coddle her, that she was acting like a baby, and that mommy and daddy shouldn't fix everything. We had to move faster and got her another place, but it put a stain on our relationship, and I confess that I didn't feel that was okay. Now, her daughter got married 2 years ago and recently found out that her husband cheated on her. My wife decided she should come live with us indefinitely and that we would fully support her because she was a stay-at-home mom. I put a stop to this, and I said that we wouldn't do that, or at least I wouldn't, and that the max she could stay here was 2 weeks while she got another place. My wife flipped on me, saying this is not my choice since it's our house, and I said that that's the same reason it's not her choice either. She was the one who brought up my daughter's need and said that I was willing to house her and that I was playing favorites. I said I asked for a month, not indefinitely, and that yeah, I thought it wasn't fair she was expecting me to drop everything for her daughter while mine was just acting like a baby. She called me a jerk, said this was totally different, then went to our room and hasn't come out yet. She refused to eat, and I'm wondering if she's right. Not the jerk. Either do marriage counseling or divorce. Your wife was cruel by refusing to house your daughter for a few weeks. Not the jerk. She's let you know exactly how she feels about your kid. Believe her. She does not care about her, thinks she's spoiled, and doesn't like you doing what most decent parents would do. Now she expects you to bend over backwards for her kid. Not the jerk. The hypocrisy of your wife is stunning. Her daughter can live in your house indefinitely, but your daughter cannot stay for 2 weeks? Tell her there is one standard. Adult kids will be helped or they won't be helped. There is no, my daughter gets help, but yours doesn't. Customer begs for special treatment after hearing we're sold out of an item. I work at a family-style sit-down with a bar. It's the end of the night, which means I'm ready to lose it on any customer who even gives me the slightest bit of grief. A group of 3 came in to order food and drinks at our bar. Customer: I'd like to get a gin and tonic and some of your wings. Me: Sure, we're sold out of our regular breaded wings, but you can get the non-breaded ones. Is that okay with you? I'm internally begging this lady to please just be okay with it, which is the normal thing to do. But she proceeded to surpass every expectation I had for her. Karen: You're sold out? Goodness, how busy have you guys been tonight? That isn't fair for your paying customers. Trying not to explain to her that every customer is a paying customer, I try to smooth things over. Me: Yeah, it's been super busy, but we still have the classic ones available. Can I get some of those started for you? Customer: I'm actually wondering if you can do something for me. Because you're sold out of the breaded ones, can I have the classic ones in all flats and half off? I think that's only fair, seeing as you're sold out. My jaw dropped internally. Me: Ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't think I can do that for you with the flats. I'm happy to get the wings started, and I can't take any money off, unfortunately. We're just sold out, but I'm more than happy to give you the replacement. Customer: No, I don't think you understand what I'm asking for. I'm just offering to do a compromise because I can't get what I want. Me: Again, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I can't do this for you. The customer gives a huge sigh. Well, if you can't do this for me, can you get someone who can? Stunned, I walked over to my manager, who burst out laughing once I told her what the predicament was. She goes over to the customer and basically repeats what I told her. As I watch, the customer starts getting visibly upset and says, Well, I'm going to be taking my business elsewhere if this is the case. My manager says with a huge smile on her face, Well, go ahead. I hope you have a great night. I was on the floor. For some context, I have severe anemia that requires I get infusions regularly. I pass out regularly from many activities, from cooking to walking. Otherwise, I look like a normal, pale, healthy adult. Recently, I was shopping at that one store with blue shirts that sells it all. I did happen to be wearing a blue shirt at the time, but it was A, more turquoise, less navy, and B, a cami top with spaghetti straps because it was 100 degrees outside. My anemia is bad right now, but this was a necessary trip because kids have to eat. I'm trying to take it slow. There were no scooters when I entered, which I hate taking, but it beats ending up on the floor, so I was trying to be extra careful. I came upon a younger woman with a kid. She was trying to reach up to grab something on a high shelf, and me being taller, I was easily able to grab the item, so I did for her and continued on my way. About 3 aisles over, I felt the fishbowl coming on. My head starts to swim and everything feels like I'm underwater. There was nowhere to sit besides the floor, and it was sit or fall, so I dropped onto the floor, crossed legs, and put my head in my lap, waiting for the worst to pass. I can hear someone clearing their throat nearby and kinda wave my hand in their direction to signal I'm okay, waiting for the world to refocus. The throat clearing sound happens again and again. I finally lift my head to see this petite lady with white hair staring at me. I croak out, "I'm fine, just give me a moment," but I was mistaken in thinking her intention was to check on my welfare. "It is extremely unprofessional to sit on the job. I need some help." She was holding a cane and started smacking the ground with each word. I looked up at her, unsure if my head was still fuzzy or she just really said what she said. At this point, some other customers and an employee had started to approach to check on me. I told her politely that I was shopping and not an employee, but she pointed her cane at me, cut me off mid-sentence, and told me that she was sick of the younger generation always making excuses. My eyes rolled so far back in my head, I'm surprised I didn't pass out. The actual employee leaned down and asked me if I needed medical assistance. I explained to him that I had a medical condition, that there had been no electric scooters, but I would manage, I just needed a moment. He got on a walkie-talkie, and I heard him say something about the scooter, but the lady started again, so I missed what was being said exactly. She looked at him and demanded he get my boss, as she wanted to give him an earful of my behavior issues. At this point, I think she was the only oblivious person in the aisle, and we had an audience of like 10. 2 other people had leaned down to ask if I wanted to get up or stay put, did I need water, etc. The employee tells the lady that a manager's on his way, but that I do not work there. She starts ranting again, something about people lying for each other. At this point, I'm embarrassed by the crowd and just ready to leave. Manager comes out and she starts ranting at this guy, tells him I was personal shopping for another customer, and when she approached me, I just sat down on the floor like an entitled spoiled brat. She then launches into a rant about how they had no electric scooters when she came in and how personal shoppers would be a benefit to her. Now, I didn't have any glamorous moment of telling her off. It isn't really my way. But I did get to enjoy her face when an electric cart was driven up by an employee and she got to see me ride off in it. The manager still explaining I had a medical condition as she began yelling about my youth and entitlement and being a bad employee. She probably still thinks I work there. Am I the jerk for cashing a check that was supposed to bounce? About a month ago, I told my friend how much my husband and I have been struggling after the trucking company he worked for went under. She asked if I'd be willing to babysit her coworker's 2 kids. I hate babysitting, but figured it would be an added benefit for my kids to have their kids to play with. So after talking about it with my husband, I said okay. The arrangement between her coworker and I was that I'd be paid $200 a week for babysitting her son, 31 weeks, and her daughter, who's 3.5. It wasn't much, but with that income, plus what my husband has been bringing in, doing Uber and Lyft, it would keep our heads above water. The first week went smooth. She paid me in cash for the whole week up front. The second week, she said she could only pay me half on Monday and the other half on Thursday because she had an unexpected bill come out. We've all been there, so I said okay, and she did end up paying me that Thursday like she said. The third week was when the real problem started. She said her baby's dad couldn't pay child support that week, so she could only afford to do $50 that week and she'd pay the rest the following week, along with what she'd normally be paying me. I was annoyed, but wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. What really upset me, though, was that she brought her kids with literally nothing but her daughter's tablet and formula for the baby. No diapers, change of clothes, no snacks, nothing. She said she'd reimburse me for the groceries and diapers if I'd cover them just for that week. I kept asking if she was sure she'd be able to pay us back. She said yes, for sure she could pay us back. The next Monday, she wrote me a check for $375. I asked her why she couldn't pay in cash, and she said the money was transferred to her account that morning and that she didn't have time to stop at the bank before dropping her kids off. Okay, cool. At least she was paying. I finished the day with the kids and head to my credit union to deposit the check. It bounced. I tried calling and texting her with no answer. My husband was fuming, and I told him I'd get it worked out the next morning when she brings her kids over. Except she didn't bring her kids. I called again and no answer. The next day, the same, and the next. I took that check to the credit union that Tuesday and Wednesday, and both days it bounced again. Still no word from her. Finally on Thursday, I went in first thing in the morning and tried to cash it, and it worked. That's when she started blowing me up and sending me texts and voicemails that I was a heartless jerk, and how dare I do this to a struggling single mom like that, and she was going to get me for this, etc. Even our mutual friend said I was wrong for doing that, and how the mom was going in on her now, and it was causing a bunch of drama at work. I feel a little bad for doing that, but we had to rearrange our lives and pay to take care of her kids when we didn't have the money. Am I the jerk? I hate that it's now come between my friend and me, but we really needed that money. ETA. I did get charged $20 every time I tried to deposit the check, but my credit union waived those fees after I told them what was going on. And because it was a personal check, they let me keep it to try again. I don't work in baking, so I don't know if that's how it's supposed to work, but that's what they did. ETA 2. I've tried reaching out to figure out how to pay her the $200 for that week, but she must have me blocked because it goes straight to voicemail. So I talked to my friend, and she's picking it up tonight and taking it to work with her tomorrow to give to her. Not the jerk. You needed that money. You had an agreement. The check constituted payment for services you rendered and materials you provided. She's lucky you didn't charge her a bounced check fee for each attempt. Neighbors retaliating for the repercussions of their mistake. So my husband, who's 39, and I, 31 female, bought a major fixer-upper about 3 years ago on a residential street in our small city in New England. Our house has a small driveway, enough for 2 cars to park side by side, which sits directly adjacent to our neighbor's driveway. The house next door is a rental, and until last summer had never changed hands. One hot summer day, my husband and I parked our cars on the street so we could power wash the driveway and clean up some oil stains. At some point, we went in for lunch, and when we came out, there was a couple sitting in their car on our driveway. As we watched, the woman in the passenger seat tossed a cigarette butt onto the driveway. My husband approached them and was basically like, "Hey, can I help you?" They explained that they were there to see the house next door. My husband kindly explained that this was our driveway and that the correct one was just a few feet over. The woman looked at her husband, rolled her eyes, and they moved the car. The next interaction we had with them, I was coming home with 2 toddlers and a load of groceries. I found a moving truck parked diagonally on our drive, back open towards the neighbor's side door, taking up the whole thing. I got the kids in the house and headed over to ask them to move the truck. I didn't want to lug half a dozen bags of groceries half a block to my own house. I was very nice, and again, the wife rolled her eyes and basically said, "You can wait an hour." I was like, "No, I can't, and if you don't get the truck off my property, I'm calling the cops." In retrospect, I kind of regret how I handled it, but it was July, super hot out, and my 2-year-old and 4-year-old were probably destroying my living room while I dealt with this. She huffed but moved the truck, and we went about our day. Since then, it's basically been horrible. The couple has a pair of Chihuahuas who they refuse to leash and who go to the bathroom in our yard constantly. They pick it up about 75% of the time. The wife lets them out without looking, and if my kids are in the yard, I have to pick them up so the dogs don't jump and bark at them. They throw their cigarette butts on our lawn, play loud music while they work on their cars at 10 p.m., and occasionally get in screaming arguments, which we can clearly hear in our home 25 yards away. Last month was the incident which brought the whole situation to a head. Our whole extended family was over for my daughter's 5th birthday dinner. We were eating in the yard and grilling. The kids were playing. Everything was great. Neighbors pull into their driveway. The dogs come running out of the car and come yapping at us. One of them bit my 3-year-old. She required stitches and is absolutely scared. We called the police and the neighbors were ticketed. I believe they had to attend some sort of hearing, and now the dog is gone. I think they had to get it put down. They've basically been doing everything in their power to drive us insane without actually breaking the law. Playing music too loud, leaving their diesel truck idling with the exhaust going right into my garden, loud language when my kids are outside, doggy-doo appearing on our lawn, you name it. I'm done. I want them gone. Please help. Neighbor demands I pay for her flea treatment. Our dog gets treated monthly with vet-prescribed flea stuff. My neighbor, Jill, treats her cats for fleas with a blend of essential oils and garlic. I dislike Jill, but I've always been courteous to her. I don't argue when she talks about things I don't believe. I restrained my laughter when she told me she cares so deeply about the environment, so she just had to protest at the summit in Glasgow. I didn't even point out the irony in driving 4 hours in a 4x4 to attend. She acts like a veritable Earth Mother, taking every chance to remind us she doesn't use chemicals, boasting she makes her own soap, laundry detergent, deodorant. Good on her. I mean, they don't work, but I applaud her for her efforts nonetheless. Her claims of environmentalism are somewhat undermined by her flying to and from London every fashion season to buy new clothes. We see her as a pretentious hypocrite, claiming to be vegan except when at an all-inclusive resort, claiming to love rescue animals, then paying thousands of pounds for pedigree cats, calling our spaniel a mutt because he came from a rescue charity, so we can't be sure of his origins. Last week, without asking if he was friendly or if it was safe for her 7-year-old to play with him, Jill's youngest kid ran up to my dog and started enthusiastically cuddling and clinging onto him. Luckily, he was well used to our kids, so was very gentle. Jill smiled indulgently. I fought the urge to say dogs with a different nature someone could have gotten hurt. Sunday, Jill came to our door and said that she and the kids are covered in flea bites. I was like, right, thanks for telling me, and went to shut the door when she screeched, "From your mutt." A discussion ensued where she insisted our vet-prescribed flea prevention was inferior to her own makes of oils and garlic. I said, sounds delicious. Jill said she paid £250 to rid her house of fleas. I said, wow, garlic prices have really risen. When she insisted that we pay for the flea treatment, done by a company that uses chemicals by the way, I refused to pay. I reminded her that her kids hadn't even asked to get so close to our dog. She replied, oh well, what was I supposed to do? My sister says it was judgmental of me to reply, parent them. I felt 100% in the right. My wife supports me. My sister is like Jill, but with the actual principle follow-through. She thinks we dislike Jill's lifestyle, but it's her hypocrisy we don't like. But I'm now wondering if I was rude like she says. Well, I know I was, but I feel justified in it. Maybe I should pay half. Am I the jerk for being judgmental, sarcastic, or rude? My sister says I am. Not the jerk. If she loved animals, she'd know garlic is not safe for cats. She's shorting their lifespan by quite a bit. It's late. There are 5 minutes left before we close. The phone rings. I answered the phone right away. The customer asks when the restaurant closes. I say, it's 9:11 now. We need to have everyone out by 10. The lady on the phone says, well, great. I'm just going to walk over now. I'll order takeout when I get there. I quickly tell her, takeout ends at 9:15. I can quickly take your order now, put it in, and we will have it ready when you get here. She agrees. Okay, I'm going to order something I've had before. It was a veggie burger. Great. Was it our avocado? And she is very hungry. I can hear it in her voice. No, it was just a veggie burger. Okay, can I put you on hold for a moment? I believe our only veggie burger at the moment is the avocado impossible, but I can double check for you. Seems impossible right now. Yes, do that. She already sounds smug. I can't quite explain it other than I know she's going to be difficult. She's on hold for about 30 seconds. I am right. The only vegetarian burger is the impossible one, so we can sub a veggie or impossible burger in place of a regular beef patty. I calmly tell her, thank you for holding. If you would not like the avocado burger, we can sub in a veggie burger or an impossible burger in place of any beef patty. Well, that's what I want. And I want it on multigrain bread, like I had it before. They put it on 2 slices of bread on each side, and they didn't charge me extra for it. I pause quickly. I'm honestly not quite sure what to say to what sounds like a lie, and I'm basically alone. Do you understand what I'm saying? She asks very bluntly. Yes, I do. Like they used 4 pieces of bread? I repeat what she said back to her. I think I can do that. Even if my manager tells me I should charge extra for more bread next shift, then I'll know for next time. Yes. Now, what do they usually have on these? The lady asks. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what you want. She still has yet to clarify what burger she's going off of. Well, vegetables. What vegetables do they put on the burger? Like lettuce, tomato? She's talking to me like I'm 5. It's different for every burger, but yes, we do have lettuce and tomato, and we can add that to any burger. I want that. I want lettuce, tomato, no onion. I want that sauce you guys have too. Also, I don't want iceberg lettuce. I'm healthy. I only eat romaine, or what's that other stuff you guys have? I glance at the clock. It's 9:14. I'm off in 15 minutes, and I'm not supposed to ring in anything else past 9:15. I'm sorry, miss, do you have access to the internet? What you're describing really doesn't exist, and it's getting quite late. If you're able to check out our menu online, you can see what we have. I tell her as nicely as I can. I don't have a computer next to me. She's snapping. Honestly, I don't see what's so difficult about this. You said you close at 10. Yes, but travel and takeout closes at 9:15. I explain calmly. If you would like, you can come tomorrow. What am I going to do? Eat a burger at 7 a.m.? Is there anyone else I can speak to? There has to be someone. This is ridiculous. No, I'm the only person working takeout tonight, and I need to clean up by myself. That's going to take a while. Then I want to speak to your manager. My manager has gone home. You can phone them tomorrow, though. Good, I will. Respectfully, don't order things that don't exist 5 minutes before closing. Please just look at our menu first. I don't mind subbing a veggie patty in for a beef patty, and I don't mind subbing in bread for a bun. We can add lettuce and tomato to whatever burger you want. Modifications are fine. Making up a completely new item is not, especially not 5 minutes before closing and 15 minutes before I'm supposed to be going home. Am I the jerk for ruining a Father's Day celebration with my bad attitude? I'm female, and I turned 30 last Saturday. I haven't done anything for my birthday in the past nearly 8 years. I'm usually working. Well, this year, my sister-in-law invited me over on my birthday and said she was going to have a barbecue birthday party thing for me or whatnot. It was not even remotely what I wanted to do on my birthday, but I felt like I couldn't say no because she was hosting it and claimed it was for me, yada yada. Well, when my husband and I arrived, family members of his that not only have I never met, but he hadn't seen in years were there. A couple uncles and their wives, as well as other family members that I had met and I do get along with. My husband was super excited to see all these people that he hadn't seen in years, and at first everything was great, despite me being really overwhelmed. However, I did take into notice that not one single person said happy birthday to me, including my sister-in-law, and she had a banner along her door that said Happy Father's Day. By about an hour and a half in, and after my sister-in-law begged me to help her host this massive barbecue and help her cook everything, enough to feed 30 people, I was completely over it. I sat in a lawn chair outside and started browsing my phone. One of the uncles and my sister-in-law sit down near me, and he goes, "Thanks for having us for Father's Day. This is nice." My sister-in-law then turns to me and says, "OP, happy birthday." I just said thanks and kept scrolling my phone. The uncle goes, "Oh, happy birthday. You don't look like you're having much fun." So I said, "I'm not. I was told this was a birthday party for me, not a Father's Day celebration, and so far I've been hosting instead of enjoying anything when I could have been out having a fun day for myself." He goes quiet and looks at my sister-in-law before saying, "You told us this was for Father's Day." She turns beet red and says I shouldn't be souring the mood over something trivial and that the family is never able to get together like this, so she just combined the two events. So I get up and say, "Yeah, well that would have worked if you had told people that you were combining events, not just celebrating Father's Day, because no one here is aware that I even exist." I then get in my car and leave. My husband is upset because he said that I didn't have to make a big deal out of it, because the relatives he hasn't seen in years now think I'm a drama queen, and he had to overly explain that I was just disappointed and it wasn't a conversation that he should have had to have. Am I the jerk? The car sales business is hard. Just give in and leave. This story is about my previous job at a dealer group, which I actually like pretty well. I wanted in at a particular brand and settled on working at a different store for 6 months and bugging the GM for a position at that one store I wanted to work at. The GM is a great guy and could see that I very much wanted to transfer over there and help me interview with upper management there, even though the two sales managers weren't really interested in a green pea, someone new to sales. They gave in after me persisting and gave me a sales position reluctantly. In my first week there, the older manager pulled me to his office, kicked his feet up, and said something along the lines of this: "Look, man, when you inevitably give up on this job, just don't bother showing up. You know how many green peas actually make it? None. Sales is a dying breed, and you don't seem to have enough of an edge to take it. You're too nice to be here. So do us a favor and just get out of here. Nobody gives notice in the car business." I took that to heart. My first month I hit commission and everybody was blown away. After over 2 years of fighting their top seasoned veteran for first place, and winning a few times, and making an absolute ton of money, my wife and I found out we were having a baby. As much as I love the job itself, having fun with my preferred brand in the process, gaining some loyal families and referrals, it was time to step away from the super high-stress job and focus on my family. It was a great experience, but always hindered by the sales managers trying to make me miserable. Some days I'd be laughing and chatting it up with my prospects and having a good time. They'd go out of their way to either mess with my deals or just upset me. Other coworkers told me that they frequently heard those managers complaining that I was too happy doing the work I was. As we got the news of our upcoming little one, I found out as well that the managers had been taking away bonuses I'd earned fair and square, called spiffs, from me for months during lockdown. It was definitely time to take the money and leave. At this point, I'd become the store's manufacturer-certified electric vehicle specialist and had the entire store's pre-order program running by myself. I was the only one certified to do it, and managers didn't know anything about the real process. January 1st, 2022 hits. I walk in 3 hours late for my shift, not wearing my normal business casual. I was never late more than a minute or two without letting them know, so they just assumed I was there, I suppose, and never went to check. Manager looks me up and down, looks at the clock, looks at me again, looks at the clock, and mumbles, you're not dressed for work." "Yeah, because I don't work here anymore." Bewildered, he repeatedly asked me what I meant by that. I just told him I quit. Thanks for doing me out of my hard-earned bonuses for a year and for trying to do me out of my happiness. "But you can't quit like this. It's not like you to do that. Where's our notice? We only have a couple of guys left. We can't cover your shifts or your pre-orders." "Well, you see, I'm just doing exactly what I was told. Have a nice year without me." Am I the jerk for overstepping my boundaries with my husband when it comes to my stepdaughter? I'm 36, female, and my husband is 40, male. I have 2 kids from a previous relationship, and he has 3 kids from a previous marriage. We share a year-old daughter. My husband's previous wife passed over 8 years ago. Last Christmas, his kids asked me to adopt them. I was all for it, but I wanted to see what his daughter, who's 15, thought about it since she's had a tough year. She was very close to her mother, and till this day still struggles. The kids are in routine therapy, so I just wanted to know how she would feel about it, given the last few months she's really been in a bad headspace. Coming from a daddy's girl who also lost her father at a young age, sometimes we're not good at accepting change, even when we say we are. Though she said she was still on board, I wanted to ask her one-on-one. She expressed to me that she had a change of heart. She felt as if she was replacing her mother. It hurt, but I understood, and explained to her that I was in no way trying to replace her mother. I explained to my husband that I think we should wait on the adoption, or I should just adopt the boys. He wanted to know why, and I explained to him the talk that she and I had. He said fine. I came home, and my stepdaughter was in her room all upset. All the kids were more than quiet, and I wanted to know why, because our home is rarely quiet, especially with 6 kids in the house. I'm used to coming home to a noisy house. I found my sons down in the basement playing on their games and asked why everyone was so quiet. He said that my husband and stepdaughter had a big fight about me adopting them. I immediately got upset. I confronted my husband and asked him why did he confront her. He said because she lied and changed her mind, that she needs to accept that her mother is gone. I lost it on him. I told him he wouldn't understand because he's never been through this, that she feels lost. She may even be depressed. This would be something new for her. I told him she would never get over this loss. I was furious he even responded that way. He said he didn't mean it that way, but I told him the damage was done, that he should be comforting her instead of being confrontational. He told me I was crossing boundaries, telling him how to deal with his kid. I told him, our kid. I begged and pleaded with my stepdaughter until she opened the door. I told her we didn't have to talk and that I just wanted to be near her, and I apologized for her father's behavior. She cried a little, and there were lots of hugs, and we talked about it. Though she and I are good, she still hasn't spoken to my husband in days, and neither have I. Now his family is taking his side. My husband is a Marine and can be harsh in his communicative delivery, which is no exception. I've had to explain to him that we're not his soldiers, but his family. Not the jerk. As a step-parent, you did everything right, going above and beyond. Your husband, on the other hand, messed everything up by confronting his daughter, whom you had already come to an understanding with. This will take a long time to fix. OP. My husband ran and told his family even about me hanging pictures of his late wife up. But they can buzz off because they have no say in our household. I would have added the conversation I had with his mother and sisters, but I was limited on what I could write. His mother felt that I was being disrespectful and not backing my husband, stating I basically gave my stepdaughter the authority of an adult, which is BS. I explained to her that I was my stepdaughter growing up, only I'd lost my father. There's nothing worse in the world than your feelings to be disregarded and not heard. I went through this with my own mother. I went through therapy and all. I told her my stepdaughter has every right to feel the way she does. Her feelings are valid. She told me that it wouldn't be long until my kids were running the household if I thought like that. I told her my kids' feelings will always come first, and it doesn't matter what she or anyone else has to say. His sisters call and give their input as well. Felt that no kid should be given that kind of a choice. That she should just obey whatever is being said by the parent. Wrong on so many levels. I don't feel that way. My mother had that same mentality, and it nearly destroyed me after my father passed. I asked them, are they aware that their niece lost her mother, that she's struggling daily, mentally and emotionally? They said that it's part of the process, and in time she'll be okay. To stop bending to her feelings, that I'm spoiling her. What? I kindly hung up and blocked them. May I add that my husband comes from a military household. His father, brothers, and one of his sisters are all military people, and they literally make me sick at how dismissive they are of my stepdaughter's feelings, which is one of the reasons now that my kids don't care to visit them. You want me to lie to prevent the guy who slipped on the ice from getting his claim? No. So I currently work in a petrol station. I came full circle when I left that job to try for something else and other reasons, but in the end did not work out and landed a job at another petrol station. This story is about the previous one I worked at, which is part of a supermarket during the winter. I arrive at work at 5:45 a.m. just as I walk across the forecourt, and next thing I'm like Bambi while trying not to fall down. Whilst doing this alongside of our duty manager, I said to him, "Hey, can you request the gritters, who we just passed gridding the main store car park, to maybe give us some love over here too? This could be dangerous for cars coming and going, but in the meantime, I'll just warn cars to drive slow and careful until the gritters come around." He says that's a good call and he'll do that. Well, of course, he didn't. So here's what happened next. After a good hour of standing outside in the cold, warning cars to drive slow and careful, I had to come back inside from the cold, plus to help my coworker hold the fort down while she went to the bathroom. While it was quiet, I got on my phone to the duty manager to ask him why he has not sent gritters, but of course, no one answers the phone. Then I noticed a customer making his way in while shouting, "Are you okay, mate?" I look out the window and I see a man mounted on his motorcycle fueling up, giving a thumbs up, and I thought, oh man, here we go. I asked the customer what happened, and he tells me how he rode his bike over the ice and came off his bike. Of course, this happened so fast, and I was distracted calling the manager, so I didn't even see the man fall. But I thought CCTV caught this. So the guy who came off his bike enters, and there I am apologizing profusely. Me, I just heard you fell off your bike. Are you okay? Biker, just scraped my knee a little and my elbow really hurts, but I'll be fine. Me, are you sure? Look, just come into the back with me. I'll get first aid to check you over and coffee is on me. Biker, hey, relax. I'm not going to make a claim. All is fine. Me, okay, I'm really sorry this has happened to you, and it's part of my job to make sure you're okay. Biker, I'm okay, and don't worry about the coffee. So the biker leaves, but bear in mind, he wasn't really wearing biker protection gear. In the end, we found bags of salt in some storage, and we took it upon ourselves to grit the forecourt ourselves, considering this was not our job to do so. A week later, my boss calls me on my day off to tell me there's a statement form I needed to fill out when I came into work next. I straight up ask, "This is about the guy who came off of his bike, isn't it?" She says, "Yeah, he's making a claim." I rolled my eyes and laughed and told my boss how the guy told me he wasn't going to make a claim, but of course I didn't blame him. I head into work the next day and write a full statement of what happened, what I saw. Well, I didn't see him fall, but footage showed he did indeed fall, and also wrote the exact conversation we had and left it at that and just got on with the day. I come home, and later that night my boss calls me to ask me a very important question regarding if this guy will get his claim or not. And the question was, "The morning the guy fell off his bike, did you notice that there was ice before he arrived?" I straight up said, "Yes, I noticed there was ice. I noticed it when I walked over it and almost slipped and fell myself." There was a pause. Then I was asked, "Are you sure? You need to answer this honestly." And I said, "Of course I'm sure, and I'm being honest." Did my coworker lie and say no? And if I'm honest here, I don't really care if the biker gets his claim or not. I requested a gritter that morning and no one turned up. I even called DM to not ask, but tell him we needed a gritter. And I know that what happened isn't personally my fault, as I tried as far as my duties are to prevent accidents such as this from happening. The boss cuts me off and says, "Your answer here is very important," emphasizing the words "your answer" and "important." "You're saying you did not notice ice?" Then I said, "I'm not going to lie to possibly prevent a guy to win some 'I hurt myself' money." That's my answer and I'm sticking with it. Good night. I hung up. Don't know if that guy got his claim or not, but all this would have been prevented if someone did their job right. Am I the jerk for not telling my family that I have a kid? My wife, who's 35, and I, 36 male, live across the country from my family, and we only visit for weddings, funerals, and other big family-related events. Both my wife and I are deaf. I've never been close with anyone in my family. My grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, brother, and father, single dad, because they never bothered to look past this. Growing up, they only did the bare minimum. Fed me, clothed me, made small talk, but they never actually tried to get to know me or do anything beyond that. They didn't even learn sign language for me. I can talk and read lips, but I'm often left out of their conversations. They never bothered to get to know my wife either. They think that we're both stupid and incapable of anything just because we can't hear. We're in our 30s, and they still treat us like kids. We hate it, especially my wife, who has purposefully not visited them since 2017. I have a successful career, and so does my wife, and we've been completely on our own since college. We have a healthy bank account, we travel a lot, and we're ready to buy a nice house, but we're waiting for the housing market to cool down. Despite all that, my family thinks that my wife's family takes care of us, i.e. helps out financially, manages our finances, and walks us through everyday tasks like buying groceries or paying bills. They just won't believe that we're intelligent and perfectly capable people who have done well for ourselves all on our own. My older brother is not deaf, and he's very close with my whole family. He doesn't have his life together. He works odd jobs, he has unstable relationships, and he regularly mooches off of people. Yet, my family still reveres him as a smart and capable person. He's a narcissist who has always treated me poorly, and my family enables his bad behavior. That's another reason I keep them at arm's length. I hope I've given enough context, so now on to the issue. My wife and I have a 2-year-old daughter. When my wife was pregnant, we decided that we didn't want any of my family in our daughter's life. It wouldn't be healthy for her to be around people who constantly disrespect her parents. And if she turned out deaf, which she didn't, they would treat her the same way they treat us. No one in my family keeps in touch with me anyway, so I didn't see a reason to volunteer any information to them. So I never told them about my daughter. We keep her off of social media, and I visited them only once since she was born, but she stayed home with my wife. My brother somehow found out about my daughter's existence a few weeks ago. The whole family is very upset. They blamed my wife because they think that she controls me, which is not true at all. They accused me of denying my daughter a family that could have helped raise her in many different ways. They may have a point. I'm starting to wonder if my wife and I are selfish for keeping our daughter from a big family full of cousins her age because we have our own hang-ups about them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They wouldn't be a family that could have helped raise her, but they would try to take over since she is hearing and you aren't, and therefore incapable from their perspective. Keep your distance, enjoy your life and your family, and keep protecting her from them. Am I the jerk for refusing to clean more than half of mine and my boyfriend's flat on my days off since we split the rent 50-50? I have refused to spend my days off cleaning our flat and insist we split the cleaning duties 50-50. He earns double what I earn, and we split everything 50-50. I work 3 days per week, and he works 5 days per week. He gets angry that I don't do our mutual washing and cleaning on my days off since I'm in the flat a lot more than him. My argument is that I'm not a housewife, and I should be able to enjoy my days off how I want to since we're both paying the same amount to live here. We have a mutual cleaning day, and we both tackle all of the jobs together. If it's really that bothersome, I've suggested we get a cleaner, but he thinks I'm being ridiculous since I'm home so much, and he still gets angry. Am I the jerk for refusing to do more than half of the cleaning? Edit. We work the same number of hours. My duty is longer, so I get more days off. Edit 2. I've never thought on the fact that we split expenses 50-50 when there's such a wage discrepancy. We split rent and bills. All costs 50-50. He doesn't pay extra towards anything at all. Everything is 50-50. Also, I don't want you to think he does nothing around the house. He does pull his weight. He just keeps getting angry with me for not doing his washing or doing more of the housework on my days off and wants me to be doing more since I'm home more. Not the jerk. If he thinks you should do more than him with the same amount of free time, he's telling you that he thinks his time is more valuable than yours. Stick to your guns on this one. Not the jerk. If he wants it 50-50 when it benefits him, it's only fair that it's 50-50 when it benefits you. Now, if he wanted to use some of that extra income to pay for a housekeeper to take on his share of chores, that's an option. Or he could see what the going rate would be for that and cover that portion of your half of the rent. But otherwise, this is classic have your cake and eat it too BS. You can have a housewife or you can have a working partner, but you don't expect a working partner to be a housewife. Not the jerk. This isn't the 1950s. You split the bills 50-50, split the cleaning 50-50, or hire a cleaner. Am I the jerk for telling my sister the real reason nobody goes to her home? I, 17 female, have a sister who's 25 who's married to John and they have 4 kids together. Me and my sister have always had a pretty good relationship, but we got a bit distant when she moved into her home last year. Our family hosts a lot of dinners as the family is pretty close, and the dinners are almost always at my parents' home. But my sister tends to beg that we all have a celebration at her home. The last time we all had a dinner party at her home, the house was trashed, and there was a lingering smell of dirty diapers, and the kitchen was a mess, dirty dishes and molding food on the table. And even though everyone stayed quiet, I could see the discomfort on their faces, and everyone ended up leaving early while I stayed behind to help her clean up. It made me a bit sad, so the weekend after the dinner party, I went over to have a chat with my sister about life, and her 3-year-old threw their dirty diaper at me. I looked at my sister, waiting for a reaction, but she just laughed it off, so I just got up and left. This isn't the first time her house has been like this, and my mom goes over a lot on weekends to try to help out, and when asked why she can't clean up after her kids, she just rolls her eyes and says, "That's not my job. They can take care of themselves, and I'd rather not get my nails dirty with them, especially when I'd rather have a cup of wine and watch TV." Mind you, her kids are 3 to 7 years old and totally cannot take care of themselves, especially because their dad works long hours. Last Monday, the whole family started texting in our family group chat, asking if the next dinner party would be at my parents' home. My sister started begging that we have it at her home since she's been wanting to try out a new recipe. Everybody just kind of ignored her and agreed with having the dinner at my parents' home. My sister didn't take the rejection well and started spamming the group chat asking why nobody ever wants to come over and how this is unfair and she feels like we all don't like her. I simply replied to her message saying, maybe if you cleaned up after your kids and tried putting in the effort to clean your home instead of going to the club with your friends, we would come over. My sister then left the group chat and called me, losing it on me, asking, how dare I embarrass her in front of the family? I replied I only wanted the best for my nieces and nephews and the way she treats them was not okay. She then told me to mind my business and hung up the phone. Now my parents are siding with her and saying every mom deserves a break and to be able to have fun with their friends. But at this rate, my sister is going out every night, leaving them alone until her husband gets home, and me or my mom are usually the ones having to go over and ensure that they're safe. Am I the jerk? Karen throws a plate at our server, ends up getting arrested. I wasn't at my restaurant today when this happened, but I was there when we dealt with this woman for the first time. Background. About 2 months ago, a woman came into my restaurant and ordered our country fried steak breakfast. It says on the menu exactly what it is. It's a country fried steak, 2 eggs, bacon, 2 biscuits, and a full mug of sausage gravy. She gets about halfway through her plate of food and calls the server over. "Excuse me, but does this gravy have pork in it?" "Yes, ma'am, and so does the bacon." "What? I can't have pork. You tricked me because you knew I don't eat pork. You are a devil. God forgive you." I want to point out that there was no outward indication that she couldn't eat pork. She then proceeds to start throwing up right there in the dining room, after which she threw her plate at our hostess. I came out of the back with my dessert chef. We're both pretty big dudes, so we're security in addition to our main roles. The lady sees 2 big dudes making a beeline for her table and decides she doesn't want to wait around and see what we have to say. She bolts from the restaurant. I drive the hostess to the emergency dental clinic and then bring her and the security footage over to the police to file a report. 2 months go by and nothing. She doesn't get caught. My hostess is not getting justice. Until last night. Lady walks right into the place and asks the hostess for a table. Mind you, this is the same server she threw the plate at. I don't know if she didn't recognize her or if she just thought she would get away with it. So the hostess sits her down, walks into the back, and calls 911. Lets them know there's a wanted criminal sitting in our restaurant. The look of shocked defeat on that lady's face when 4 uniformed officers walked in and headed straight for her table was so satisfying. I want to print out a still from the security tape and hang it on my office wall. I don't have any details on what charges she's facing, whatever her bail situation is, or anything like that, but she left the premises in handcuffs, so I'll call it a win. I'm just glad she was dumb enough to return to the scene of the crime. Am I the jerk for calling off my wife's birthday party after she lied to me? I'm prefacing this by saying that I, male 38, have a daughter, Sandy, who's 16, with an incredibly sensitive personality and loves to help people. We come from a well-off background compared to her friends, and so for the past few months, she's been doing some charity work. She's cut her hair off and donated it to cancer patients, pawned her things off and sold some of her expensive clothes, shoes, and/or gave them away to help out her friends and other families. Now she wears thrift shop clothes, which is something my wife isn't so happy with. She thinks that Sandy was and is painting a bad picture of us as being neglectful and giving a false impression to people that we're poor, when in fact we're doing well financially. I admit my wife is all about appearances, and recently I started noticing that she's been excluding Sandy from events and gatherings because of how she dresses. I talked to her about it and she said it was all in my head. But last week was my wife's birthday. We celebrated at a restaurant and I asked my wife to get Sandy and meet me there. Although at first she hinted that if Sandy refuses to dress properly, then she wouldn't bring her. But I told her that if she didn't bring her, then we'd have an issue and the party would be called off. We waited, and then I saw my wife walk into the restaurant by herself. I was mad, I'm not gonna lie. I asked her where Sandy was, and she told me that she didn't feel like coming, even though she talked about how excited she was for this party. I just had this gut feeling that my wife was lying, so I texted Sandy, and sure enough, my wife gave her an ultimatum, saying either she had to wear something that matches our class, or she wouldn't be allowed to come to her birthday where her friends and family are gathered. I went and called Sandy outside, and she was crying. I was furious. I walked into the restaurant and picked up an argument with my wife and told her family and friends exactly why Sandy wasn't there. My wife looked shocked. She started arguing with me, and I ended up calling off the entire event and having everyone else leave early. My wife literally started yelling at me at the restaurant, so I took my stuff and went home. She got back and kept yelling at me for ruining her birthday and making a scene and humiliating her in front of her friends and family. She said that Sandy was acting stubborn and that's on her, but I told her she acted unreasonably by excluding her like that. Sandy was crying because of it, and I felt this was too big to look over, despite my wife saying that it wasn't a big deal and ruined her birthday for no reason. She went to stay with her family and won't even reply to my texts. She just reads them but doesn't respond, probably expecting me to apologize for what happened. Am I the jerk? Did I go too far? Not the jerk. Your wife is though. Not just in this situation, but she honestly just sounds bad regardless. Your daughter is wonderful, honestly a great human being, and everyone should be glad there's still people like that. Your wife is clearly showing her true and snobby colors. Not the jerk. Your wife is definitely wrong for all of that, and I'm glad that the wonderful Sandy has a great parent she can rely on and knows will love her no matter what. A little humiliation can go a long way. Calling her out was the right thing to do and will prevent her from painting a false narrative about the whole situation. The next thing OP should text her is, "I'm never going to apologize for teaching my daughter to stand up to a bully. We can move forward and have a calm conversation about your behavior and why it's unacceptable, or you can stay gone." Not the jerk. Your wife is not only a jerk, but she's doing her darn hardest to force your daughter to be too. Your daughter is dressing this way and doing these things for moral reasons she feels make her a good person. She also seems to be in line with how you taught her to be, not to put her wealth in others' faces. Your wife doesn't like your value set or the value set of your daughter. She's concerned with appearances in front of strangers, status, and class. It makes me wonder how your wife acts to people less fortunate to her in public, quite honestly. You are a papa bear defending his kid from a woman who doesn't love her. You did the right thing. Not the jerk, but are you confident Sandy is okay? Charity is great, but it sounds quite extreme and like it's all happened very recently, last few months. Someone getting rid of all their stuff can be a sign that they aren't doing so well from a mental health perspective. Hopefully that's not the case for Sandy, but it would be remiss of me to not mention this possibility. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If you canceled my birthday, Reddit boy, you'd need a new head. Investor wants to buy my house way over market value? Okay, no problem. So I'll start by saying that this story is not mine. It's my parents' next-door neighbor of 20 years. Background. My parents and their neighbor bought homes in an up-and-coming part of Florida 20 years ago, talking half-acre lots with 2,500 square foot homes for like $130,000. Our neighbor's home was a little smaller than my parents', no pool, and over the 20 years, the only thing they've done to the house was a new roof. Nothing else had been changed. Everything was still the original. Appliances, paint, AC unit, cabinets, tile, and carpet. I wish I could say she took care of it and never needed to change things, but that wasn't the case. Our neighbor's house looks 20 years old. Well, she is a widow, and the house is huge for just her, so she decided to sell and take advantage of the market. She listed it for $400,000, despite her never having put a penny into it. The house goes on a bidding war, and the top bidder is an investor from California. She offers to pay $30,000 over asking, pay the closing costs, and can do it same day. Cue malicious compliance. The investor woman had two stipulations. Our neighbor takes the house off the market immediately, and she turns over the key to her management company with the cash for the home held in escrow until the key was turned over and our neighbor's side of the paperwork was done. Now, our neighbor was upfront with this woman and the state of this home, and asked if she wanted to have our management company come look at it first. The woman says, "No, I'm renting the house and it doesn't need to be painted. Just pull it from the market." This woman essentially bought the home for about $450,000 when it was all said and done. So our neighbor immediately goes to the management company office with her realtor, signs her paperwork, hands over the key, and gets the check for the home. A few days later, our neighbor gets a call from investor lady. She is irate. The house is in disarray, in needs of a paint job ASAP, new appliances and flooring at the least. She demands that our neighbor paint the house. She won't take ownership of the home until that is done, to which our neighbor responds to her, "It's not my home anymore. It was signed over to you and the check was handed to me and cleared. That house is no longer my problem. Enjoy." This story all came about because yesterday my parents called our old neighbor. There was a for sale sign on the house again and we were confused. Our old neighbor promptly showed up and told us the story, and we are all laughing hysterically because the woman has it listed for $430,000, which anyone with eyes to tour it would never pay. And even if she did get it, she'd still be losing a ton of money. Who doesn't love a story when greedy investors trying to inflate the market lose and lose big? Am I the jerk for not helping my girlfriend's son when he got stuck lifting weights? I'm a 36-year-old man, and my girlfriend is 34. I'll call her Jenny. She has a son who is 14 from a previous relationship. I'll call him George. Jenny and I get along well in basically all but one department, George. As bad as this is going to make me sound, I really don't like him. But Jenny's rose-tinted glasses for him might as well be painted with a coat of black at this point. She legitimately cannot stop enabling his bad behavior, let alone recognize it for what it is. This friction has only gotten worse as she moved in with me 2 months ago because they could no longer afford to live alone. I have a basement gym that I have poured over $7,000 into. It has multiple types of high-end barbells, a power rack, and various other equipment. In past days, I was a competitive powerlifter, and although I've scaled back a lot on that front, I still train very hard. When Jenny and George moved in, George started to use my home gym uninvited. I first warned him not to, but by lying through his teeth, he has consistently done it behind my back. I can tell because he leaves barbells loaded and equipment moved. I then put a lock on the door, which George broke down with a hammer. I then reinforced the door and put a new lock on, which George could not break. Jenny, however, insists on having a spare key to the basement, and I recently learned that she has been loaning it to George. She tried cleaning up after him, but I could tell. Since he and she are home during the day as he takes lessons online, see, plays Minecraft with the teacher muted, I can do nothing about it. Jenny won't return my key either. A couple of days ago, I got home from work and decided to hit the gym. Noticing the door open, I walked down the stairs, only to find George in the middle of a bench press set. As I watched him from the stairs, he went for one rep too many and got stuck. He was in no danger at any point because the barbell was low on his sternum, and plus it was only like 80 pounds. After 30 seconds of panic mode, he finally got the bright idea to dump the weight, to which I gave him a slow clap. I started to tell him that that's what happens when you work out alone, and he then shrieked at me red-faced. Then he insulted my strength, to which I responded that I'm not the one getting pinned under an 80-pound bench. He ran upstairs, basically in tears, and then told Jenny what I had said. Jenny is also furious at me, and they're both giving me the silent treatment. She says I should have handled the situation better, but I say I kind of did when I installed a heavy-duty lock and put a new lock on it. I'm going to be changing the lock tomorrow. Did I go too far with how I dealt with George here? If you don't like her son, I would end the relationship, to be honest. It's as simple as this. It'll never get better. Just tell them to leave. It's also about them not respecting your property. The entitlement of those two, not the jerk. And Jenny lying about it. OP is lucky those two were caught before anything serious happened. He could be in for a costly lawsuit. I really don't understand people who think they can separate a parent from their kid. They're a package deal, and the kid will always come first. And if a parent is willing to put their kid on the back burner for a relationship, is that someone you want to be with? No clue why he let them move in when he knows he doesn't like her son. A lot of people are saying a lot of different things on here, but in my opinion on dating single moms is if you don't like the kid, then you kind of have to end the relationship. It's super unhealthy for all three of you. Now, the little brat deserved it. I would have done the same, provided he was in no legitimate danger as you have stated. However, if you really can't stand him, if you don't want him in your space, then you have to ditch them both. Dating a single mom is a package deal. You can't just pick out what you want, her, then dispose of the rest, her kid. Honestly, bro, the kid always comes first, regardless of the situation. So if you have that much of an issue with him, then leave her. Not the jerk. I think you're the one viewing things through rose-tinted glasses. It's not just a matter of enabling him. Your girlfriend is using you. She's refusing to give you the spare key to your gym for the sole purpose of using it to violate your wish to not have him down there. This is beyond disrespectful, and now you have to change the lock again because she won't relinquish the key. Even better, she's punishing you with a silent treatment. Question: what happens when she demands the new key for the new lock you get? Will she keep giving you the silent treatment until you yield? This relationship isn't healthy. Am I the jerk for announcing the reason why I didn't invite my brother to my wedding and exposing him to the entire family? I, male 30, got married 2 weeks ago. I was married before, but it ended after I found out that my older brother Thomas, who's 34, was involved with my first wife. It was devastating because we were close and we had a great relationship. I also helped him so much while he was struggling, and seeing how he repaid me hurts me to this very day. I stopped talking to him, and mom and dad forced me to keep it a secret, and because I was too weak to argue with them, I just kept my own distance. Then I met my now wife. My family loved and embraced her as their own. Mom and dad treat her like a queen, which helped repair and solidified my relationship with them. However, as the wedding was approaching, they told me they expected me to invite Thomas. I of course refused, but they kept guilting me about what the relatives and other guests would think and say when they didn't see Thomas there. I fought with them about it till the day of the wedding. Turned out, they'd invited him behind my back, but I found out and stopped them in time. They came to the wedding looking upset, asking what we were going to tell people when they asked about Thomas. I told them I'd take care of it. And what I did was take a moment while everyone was paying attention, grabbed the mic, and flat out announced this and said, "The reason I didn't invite Thomas to my wedding is because I was worried he'd steal my now wife just like he stole the first one." I said it playfully to not make it sound so tense, but most of the guests looked shocked and started mumbling when it went awkwardly quiet for a moment. Then we moved on, but I saw mom and dad walk out while looking at me grudgingly. Later, they started lashing out about how I had just exposed Thomas and caused him to be shunned by the entire family in the most hideous of ways. I told them that I already said I didn't want him there, yet they tried to push him on me repeatedly, saying, "What are people going to say?" So I told them the reason why he wasn't there in a playful way, but they, the guests, still got the message. Mom started yelling about how everyone will now look down on and shun Thomas. She called me pathetic and cruel for still punishing him and gradually ruining his life, despite him apologizing and still trying to reconcile. But in my opinion, some things are just unforgivable. We've been on horrible terms since then. Am I the jerk? My wife said at least now they're off my back about what people would say about not inviting him. Not the jerk. Your brother brought it on himself and your parents. Good grief. If that was how they repaid you in terms of repairing the relationship, then perhaps you're better off without them, and I don't often suggest no contact. By trying to keep it on the down low, they didn't condemn the cheating and fully expected OP to forgive him for it. It also suggests they care a lot about the public image the extended family sees, which is also a jerk move when it invalidates OP's feelings about his brother and ex-wife. Congratulations to you and your wife. Not the jerk. If they had respected your wishes, it wouldn't have gotten to that point. Inviting him behind your back is just wrong. I can see how they'd want you and your brother to have a relationship, but your brother destroyed that, and it's up to you when or if you ever want to have a relationship with him again. Also, it sounds like they're probably more concerned about the shame of people knowing what he did, which is also not your problem. Not the jerk. You just told the truth. You don't need to hide how you feel and what happened to protect your brother. Family secrets always create so much toxicity. Better to get him out early in my opinion. Good on you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his parents? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not buying sodas for my girlfriend's siblings? My girlfriend, Jen, who's 19, and I, 19 male, are both done with school for the summer. She has a brother who's 13 and a sister who's 11. When her and I are going somewhere, like the beach or park, she wants to bring her siblings with us. She said if she doesn't take them fun places, they'll spend the whole summer sitting around their house. Jen isn't working right now, but I do. So if we do something that costs money, I pay. Sometimes it's annoying because our siblings don't say thank you or show any appreciation and basically act like it's my job or expected. Jen doesn't want me to tell their parents when they misbehave. The parents ask because she thinks that they won't want to spend time with her. So basically they can be as annoying as they want and nothing happens. Anyway, yesterday after work we went to the beach. They weren't listening and were acting up the whole time. We all brought a bottle of water along. I finished mine before we left. Both kids still had most of their water left. When we were in the car, I said I'd be right back and ran back to the pavilion to get soda from the vending machine. I got myself a Mountain Dew and gin a lemonade. They were like $4 each, so I definitely wasn't buying the kids one. When I got back to the car, I gave her the lemonade and she asked if I got them sodas. I said, no, they still have water left and I'm not rewarding their bad behavior. Besides, last time they had soda, they left them back there half drank. My car isn't their garbage can. She gave them some of her lemonade. After we dropped them off, she said it's not my job to parent them. I said I wasn't parenting them, but I wasn't buying them a reward for acting up all day. She said you can't withhold food and drink from a kid when they misbehave. I said they both still had water. If they were thirsty, they had something to drink. She said, you know all kids will want a soda over a water. That was mean to basically say, ha, you don't get none. You were being a bully to an 11 and a 13-year-old. I said, when I was a kid and misbehaved, then my parents wouldn't get me a treat. She said, yeah, your parents, but you're not their parent. I said, no, but it's my money and not our money, and gestured between her and I didn't want to spend $8 on sodas that they wouldn't finish. She said I was being a jerk and wanted to go home, so I took her home. I don't have kids, so maybe I'm wrong. But when I was a kid, I didn't get rewarded for being a brat. Am I the jerk for not getting them a soda? Not the jerk. This is how you end up with other entitled bratty adults. Thanks for not rewarding their bad behavior, and you may want to examine the ways in which your girlfriend feels entitled. Not the jerk, and she's right. You're not their parents, so there's no reason you need to have them tag along anytime you want to do something with your girlfriend. You need to seriously reconsider if you want to be in this relationship and lay down an ultimatum. No more kids tagging along on your dates, and you certainly shouldn't pay a dime for them. If she doesn't like that, then you should consider ending things, because it doesn't sound like her family situation is compatible with you. Seriously, when your girlfriend says you're not their parents, she's so close to getting the point. So close. They're using you and taking advantage of you. Stand up for yourself. Not the jerk. Your girlfriend is the jerk for acting entitled to your hard-earned money. If she wants stuff bought for her siblings, either she or her parents can pony up. And 100%, you two are the adults in this situation and therefore can enforce the rules on the kids. Basic manners isn't too much to ask. Not the jerk. They're 11 and 13. That's old enough to know that they need to save their money to buy extra treats themselves on general principle. Never mind understanding that acting up means they'll miss out on fun stuff. If I were you, I'd be asking serious questions about whether you want to plan any kind of long-term future that involves kids with Jen, because she seems to have a much harder time saying no to things than she really should. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Bro, you're 19 and you don't even have any kids. It's time to dump her. Karen hurls threats at me because I don't work at Target. This happened some years back when I was in middle school, but scrolling through this sub just reminded me of it, so I decided to tell it. When I was in middle school, my mom worked at a Target a few blocks away from my school. So when school let out, I would walk to the Target and wander around the store for a couple of hours till my mom got off work. My school had a uniform which was identical to the Target uniform, a red polo shirt and khaki pants. So this wasn't the first or last time I had been mistaken as an employee, but it was the first time anyone ever refused to take no for an answer when I told them I didn't work there. One day after school, I was doing my usual thing and poking around the store when this woman approached me and asked if I could open one of the checkout lanes since the lines at the other already open lanes were very long. Of course I couldn't do that because I didn't work there, and I told her as such. Now initially it wasn't an issue that she thought I worked there because I had helped her find a few items about a half an hour ago. Since I was there every day, I knew where everything in the store was, so when people asked where things were, I would go ahead and show them, as I did with this woman. However, after I told her that I didn't work there, now she got irritated and told me that I was lying because I was wearing the Target uniform. I told her that it was actually my school uniform, and again she accused me of lying and trying to slack off and said that I wasn't doing anything anyway, so I should just open the lane for her. At this point, I was taken aback and sort of stammering because I was a very nervous and timid kid back then, and I wasn't good with confrontation, especially with adults. I didn't know what to say, so I just shut down and started walking away, which wasn't the best idea, I know. To which she then started grabbing my arm and trying to pull me to the register while shouting at me and yelling that she would get me fired. At this point, I started tearing up, and she was starting to get the attention of other customers. A couple, I presume, came over and the man pulled her off of me while the woman went and got help. After someone came, I thanked the couple and headed to the bathroom to calm down, and as I was coming back out, I saw the lady surrounded by employees and trying to exit the store with a cart full of unpaid-for things, and saying that if no one would check her out to pay for her things, she would just take it without paying. I don't know what else happened because my mom had heard what happened and came and let me into the break room. Am I the jerk for wanting to report my pregnant boss and quit? I, 27 female, have been at my job for 11 months. In those 11 months, I've started school and reduced my work schedule significantly. When I told my boss I was going to school, she, who's 29, seemed excited. That was until she got pregnant. Then she opposed me working less because it would put a lot of stress on her and her baby. Still, I went to school with reduced work hours. She's in her second trimester and she makes everything at work about her pregnancy. She refuses to take out 2 small bags that weigh maybe 2 pounds because she's pregnant and it's too hot for a pregnant woman to go outside. She complains that soon she just won't do much because she's pregnant. If she has a doctor's appointment, she has to go to it, and we are expected to cover her, even if she didn't schedule them correctly. 2 weeks ago, my uncle passed suddenly, and his funeral was this past Monday. I let her know prior to her making the schedule, so she didn't schedule me, and she responded fairly annoyed, telling me to find coverage. I felt that was kind of messed up, as it was a funeral, but I found coverage anyway. Today, I had a kidney infection that landed me in the hospital. My husband texted my boss to let her know I was in the emergency room, and my boss, instead of seeing if I was okay, said, "So what, she's not coming in?" My husband told her most likely no, to which she didn't respond. Honestly, I was at my breaking point. My coworkers and I are so burnt out on picking up the slack that she never wants to do. It's her world and we just live in it. If we're sick, it's a problem. If she's sick, we're expected to be kind and understanding. We're human beings. Either way, I called her and snapped, saying I didn't want to work for a boss who didn't care if I lived or not, that I'm still a human being and things happen and it's not fair to treat someone like this. She hung up on me. I'm planning on reporting her to my higher-ups or HR and requesting a transfer, but honestly, I may just quit. Am I the jerk here? Edit. This probably doesn't matter, but when I started working there, I told her my husband and I were trying to have kids. It's been a really hard journey and a lot of appointments and negative tests. It's been difficult. She and her boyfriend have been together less than a few months and got pregnant on accident. I was happy for her, even when she was talking about how she felt like she should not have it because she didn't feel like the father would put in enough effort. A lot of the time, I feel like she's rubbing her pregnancy in my face. It is slowly making me resent her. Not the jerk. If your boss needs to take on less for her medical condition, the company needs to ensure proper staffing. You should not be made to feel guilty because you also have personal and medical needs. Not the jerk. Being pregnant does not excuse you from having empathy and being kind. You had a literal infection. You're not in the wrong here. Not the jerk. She's using her pregnancy as an excuse to not work. You should definitely report her to HR. Would I be the jerk for filing a restraining order on my neighbors? I, 28 female, moved back to my home state to take care of my grandparents' home when they moved into an assisted living apartment a few months ago. Shortly after moving, both of them passed due to illness. The home was put into my stepdad's name long before their passing due to some shady people who stole from them while they were still alive. Some of these shady people are my neighbors. Let's call them Chad and his wife Karen. They're both in their late 60s, early 70s. They tried to convince my grandfather, who had dementia, to sell, knowing he was not in the right mind. The home was not in my grandmother's and dad's name, so it fell through. So skip to me moving in and everything is fine. I live in a large country neighborhood where the closest grocery store is 45 minutes either way. It's by a lake and had a beautiful view of the forest. I say that because Chad cut down every tree he could get his hands on, some of ours even, while no one lived here. From the day I moved in, they both started coming over and asking to buy. It's not in my name yet. I told him we were not selling. Well, it turned into him asking me almost every day for 2 months or any time he saw me, until I asked him to leave me alone as we're not selling out of the family. I work full-time from home, 45 to 50 hours a week. Since they have figured out my schedule, they've been riding their lawnmower over and leaving it on with no one there next to the porch, on or past the property line. They have also let their dogs free in the front yard, but complain when mine are out, ride their lawnmower like a four-wheeler up and down the property line, ride their four-wheeler by my bedroom window no matter what time it is, sit by my window way after the sun has gone down and yell at each other or play loud music. Told me to just sell because it's dangerous for a single woman to live alone in the country in a large house by herself, and much worse. They're trying to buy the land on the other side of the home to basically try and force my hand. Today, he was throwing some rusty metal rods on my property right outside of the porch. My office is all windows and attached to the partial wraparound porch, so I could see him clearly. I opened the window and asked nicely for him not to dump on the property line, and he got irate and started yelling at me and made some threats. My cameras have caught that and have caught most of these exchanges and the trespassing. I'm really considering filing a restraining order. I've already spoken with a sheriff who says with my evidence, my request could very well be granted. Would I be the jerk if I filed for a restraining order? Also, due to financial reasons, I cannot put up a privacy fence at this time, as I'm still working on my budget, as I went from a small amount of rent in another state to paying for a whole house. I am saving for it though. Not the jerk. They're trying to bully you into giving them their way. I hate to think what your grandparents went through when they lived there from these terrible people. Not the jerk. You need a restraining order. You also need a bunch of T-posts and some barbed wire to run along the property line. Regarding the trees that were removed, do you have proof it was Chad or his hire? If so, sue them for the replacement of the trees. Sister-in-law demands I pay rent in my own house. Context. I, 18 male, am the younger brother to Will, who's 30. My mother passed of a heart issue when I was 5, and my father wasn't the best person. When I was 9, my brother went through a lot of court and custody trials to get a hold of me, and won in the end, partially due to the fact I was open about not wanting to live with my dad. When Will was 24, he got married to my current sister-in-law, Kara, who's 31. Kara doesn't really like me, not in an aggressive way, but she's always treated me more like I was a guest or a visitor who had overstayed their welcome, even trying to move me to the couch after they had their newborn son because why should we get a new house when this one already has 2 rooms? Will was very adamant about the fact that we moved to have more room, so we did. He's always treated me similarly to how he treats his son, with a bit more jokes and non-serious insults in the mix. He's the only family I really have, and he's good family too. My nephew, of course, is considered family as well, and I do love him, but not in quite the same way I care about Will. When I turned 16, I got a job because I didn't want to be leeching off of the 2 of them. I work as a merchandise assistant, nothing amazing, but it makes money. Kara has always had something to say about what I buy, about how I should have been saving or that what I was buying was unimportant stuff. I do have a savings account, and I put some of every paycheck in there. Now that I've turned 18, Kara is trying to make me pay rent, and it's causing constant arguments between her and Will. Yesterday, I got sick of it and told her that I live here. I've lived here longer than you have, so why should I pay rent? Not to add on to the fact that what I do with my money isn't your business. It did stop the argument in all fairness, but Will also told me later I should have kept out of it, and now Kara keeps sending me dirty looks and sly comments every time she sees me, to the point I've started going out to eat, or I eat in a different room so that the tension doesn't boil over. I don't know, maybe I am the jerk and should have just compromised with her to keep the peace, but it doesn't feel fair, so am I the jerk? Edit. I only finished high school about a month ago, considering different universities right now. I turned 18 in February. He wanted you to stay out of it because he's still trying to protect you. You have a wonderful big brother, and I'm sorry for the trails you've been through. Not the jerk. Your sister-in-law needs to learn to treat you with respect. You give them privacy, don't be in their business, and you're respectful. I'm sure you do chores as well. OP, you're doing a great job as a younger brother. You did nothing wrong. Maybe talk to her and see what she dislikes about you. She dislikes that he ruined her perfect family dream, and that every dollar hubby spends on him is $1 less for her and his real son. She sees him as an unwelcome intruder on her life, but instead of breaking it off with a boyfriend doing something she didn't like, she stuck around hoping she could make him see how unwelcome he is so he would leave. Will's a great brother for stepping up and being a dad at 21, but foolishly naive for marrying someone he needs to protect his brother from. Not the jerk. You are part of Will's family, and she has neither the right nor the power to change that. You didn't get it in writing. No, you. So I was a new but qualified recruit in a small team that was working with a very large client and stakeholder in the company. Despite my skills, it was my first real job fresh out of grad school, so I was inexperienced with office politics, contract law, power hierarchies, etc. The clients had given us an almost impossible task to prototype a complex solution to a technical problem that they had. As the only one in the team with the relative expertise, the burden quickly fell on me to deliver alone while the others essentially managed. The team leader and effective boss promised me at the beginning that I would get a bonus worth roughly 30% of the salary on which I was hired. Apparently, this bonus was a direct financial contribution from the big clients themselves, and the wheels were in motion to get this extra cash. Great, but not really, because it was not in writing. Over the next 2 years, however, no such bonus compensation transpired. I would periodically and half-heartedly ask about this bonus during in-person meetings, and I was verbally reassured it was on its way. In hindsight, I would have been more assertive and perhaps sent an email, but again, I was a newbie and unwilling to bite the hand that feeds, so to speak. After these 2 years, the company began to expand their business with the client as a direct result of the work that I did on the impossible project. At some point, the clients even present all that hard work of mine at some international conference, of course, claiming it was their intellectual property and proprietary solution. Although the project ownership rightfully and lawfully belonged to them, the lack of acknowledgement left a bitter taste in my mouth, and worse was that money flowing around, and both companies were profiting from 2 years of painstaking effort, but there was no bonus in sight. So my work contract was also nearing its end in the 3rd year. Obviously, the company wanted to retain me to continue on this project. I was the only one who knew the ins and outs of it. It would be a joint employment between the company and client, as I would be tasked with transitioning the project from the company to the client, which would require several more years to do so. I also went through half a year of specialist training with the clients. Only I could do the job for the foreseeable future. For this, I was offered a decent increase in my salary, but that missing bonus was ruining my trust. At a contract negotiation meeting, I asked about it one last time. The team leader and boss said that they had no recollection of such an agreement or an offer, and that I should have gotten it in writing. Fair enough, some lessons are learned the hard way. But the worst realization was that the missing bonus, a measly 30% of the new hire salary for almost 3 years, was now earmarked for an intern to join me on the project. It was almost a one-to-one calculation, as the client would sponsor the intern with the funds that were intended bonus for me. It was the last week of the work contract, and Human Resources had invited me to double-check the document before I was to sign it. Of course, given all the time, money, training, and resources invested in me continuing on this project, and my very real eagerness to do it, it was assumed that I would be here for the long haul, and the work contract was a formality. So what happened next is something that I do not recommend that anyone try at home, or work for that matter. It was a moment of impulse from a reckless youth. However, I was feeling particularly vengeful about the missing bonus. My ego had been bruised because I wrongfully trusted them to follow through, but I was not clever enough to get the agreement in writing. Well, Uno reverse card moment. There was also no written agreement on my end. So I had not yet signed contract. I carefully double-checked my emails, and there was nothing in writing where I agreed to continue on this project, or even this job. In fact, I had just been verbally enthusiastic about the project during meetings with my boss and the clients. The first new workday rolls around when I am officially no longer employed at the company or with the clients. I gave no notice and no warnings. I just abandoned them. On the previous day, I had left my company pager and phone in the office locker. I had to sacrifice a few personal possessions on the office desk. I logged out of the work email messenger system so that they could not reach me. I'm not sure how they responded because I ignored and deflected every single communication which came my way for following months. It was bliss knowing that I probably caused this company a major catastrophe for the next few years at least. Of course, I could not predict the consequences that they would face from abrupt and unannounced exit, but I did not have time to care about them. I had to become selfish, and I had to dip into my savings and relocate and start afresh in another city far away, which was very difficult without references considering the professional bridge that I had just burned, hence the not recommending part. But eventually my skills began to speak for themselves. The last I heard about the company was from an ex-colleague as we reconnected on an online professional network a few years ago. Apparently, the company still exists, but it is a shell of its former self as things went horribly south after I left. They lost the big client as I had anticipated. No one else had the skill set to do work. The clients are still players in the sector, but I have the great fortune of not having to interact with them so far. But I could not have predicted the domino effect that followed in the company. A few more large clients followed soon after because staff had to be reshuffled to do my project, and these other clients felt neglected. Now they are downsizing and in the process of being swallowed by a competitor. From what I gather, the other big casualty of this revenge is my ex-boss developed some substance problem around this time to cope with the stress, triggered in part by not being able to contact me for months on end during a critical time in the company's expansion. Throw in a divorce too, because this work stress destroyed the marriage as well. I did feel a little bit guilty when my ex-colleague explained all this, and still do. Is it enough for me to right my wrongs and write an apology or something? Not really, but perhaps I'm wrong here. I am open to suggestions. Note: the ex-boss tried to get in touch with me a few more times some years after things went downhill, but I was just too busy, so I continued my ghosting strategy. But anyway, here's to my ex-company. I hope it was worth the measly bonus that I deserved. I was brought on as a new recruit, and I was a junior who had to lead the project from the get-go. I had to work hard and learn new skills in the hours outside of work so the fat clients and middle management could reap the rewards, not on my vengeful watch. The reason that I'm writing this is that it is somewhat cathartic. The company did some crappy things, and so did I. But the missing bonus still gets to me from time to time. I could have bought a house, and I could have settled down in that old town. I wouldn't have been displaced for months and living with my head just above the water, having to rebuild myself for a few good years following that. Abandoning the project and the job was career-ending at the time, but my revenge was such that whatever happened, I would try to get through life without groveling back to that company. Of course, this arrogant jerkness of mine, born from this hatred of having not gotten that bonus, still has at least one unwritten chapter. At the current workplace, where I am also a stakeholder now, I'm now proposing a new version of that old project I began a decade ago and never got a chance to see to completion. It would be nice to showcase a patent during an international conference attended by those big former clients. That would be the real bonus. So yeah, mistakes all around, with at best mixed ending for all parties. But at least it is finally good to get this in writing. My selfish sister is having our parents pay for her college. Now they can't pay for my kids' daycare anymore. I'm 25, female. I live with my husband and our 2 sons, who are 3 and 6 months old. We've been struggling financially and both work in the service industry where it's very difficult to get time off, so my parents pay for my son's daycare so we can work. My sister, Jess, who's 17, got into a prestigious Ivy League this year. She received financial aid, so won't have to pay the whole insane amount of money, but housing and reduced tuition comes out to about $10,000 a year. She also got into our local state school where she got a full ride and wouldn't have to pay anything. She decided on the IV when our parents agreed to pay. My parents recently sat me down and told me that they would no longer be able to pay for my kids' daycare because they're paying for Jess's college. Their excuse is that they paid similar amounts to my college. I am extremely frustrated because I went to the cheapest college available for me, and I think Jess should have done the same. We're all proud of her, but I feel like she's putting her ego over my nephew's. We simply cannot afford daycare, and I will likely have to quit my job, which may mean we could be evicted. I told all of this to Jess on the phone and politely asked her to contact the state school to ask if they would still take her, and to take a gap year if not. She refused, and I got angry and called her selfish and immature. My husband agrees with me, but our parents are mad and won't answer my calls. Am I the jerk? Update. Okay, I haven't used Reddit much before and wasn't expecting this influx. I called my sister and I apologized and explained that I was angry at the situation, not her. Our financial situation is very bad right now, and I took my fear out on her, which wasn't okay. She said she would speak to our parents for me and consider taking out loans so we could continue getting help. May delete this later. Info. Is it true that they paid $10,000 for your college as well? Because if so, it's not fair to your sister to deny her the money for her dream school. Just because you chose the cheapest school doesn't mean she should have to. Edit. OP isn't replying, but based on other comments, it's gonna be a you're the jerk from me. The parents feel the sister is entitled to the same $10,000 OP was. It's their money, and they can spend it as they please. Wow, you're the jerk. You're an adult with a husband. Start paying your own bills. You're the jerk. It's more selfish and immature to expect your parents to pay for your kids. Your parents are paying for their daughter. They don't need to put her future on the back burner because you and your husband can't be responsible adults. You're the jerk. She doesn't have to choose her college based on your financial issues. You've been lucky your parents have funded your childcare this long. That's not their job, it's yours. She's not being selfish or immature. You, however, have a distinctive smell of entitled. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her younger sister? Please let us know. Bruh. As you wish. In a former life in the previous century, I was a tour bus driver. It was a great job for a single person. Took me all over the US and into Canada several times. The tour companies often hire step-on guides to show a busload of strangers around a city or a national park or such like. The step-on is usually a local resident and knowledgeable about the area's history and attractions. Most are at least competent, and some are remarkably good at their job. One day in a northern city, I forget just where, we picked up a woman who didn't have much experience with bus tours. She had an odd personality and was a bit of a cold fish, but whatever. I didn't have to like her. I just had to work with her for an hour and a half. It soon became obvious she didn't know what she was doing. I had never been to that city before, had no idea what was on her agenda, even if I had known my way around, and she provided very little information to me. Obviously, doing an efficient job of directing the driver is a key part of the job, but she told me she would let me know where to turn. As one might imagine, having a clue or two about where you're headed is very important for the safe operation of a bus. You don't just turn at a moment's notice, especially if you are on a multi-lane road. I had to interrupt her a few times to get directions, and she was getting testy about it. I had been doing the job for a while by then, and I was quite good at it. I got along great with most step-ons, and we worked seamlessly together. The really good ones will incorporate some of their directions to the driver into their narrative. Okay, when we get to the top of the hill up ahead, Gadwell is going to turn left on 19th Street. As we round the corner, if you look to your left, nice. Anyway, this guide got really upset at me the next time I asked her something, like which lane I needed to be in. She keyed the PA mic and said, "I'm sorry for the interruption, but your driver keeps asking me for directions. I keep telling him I'll let him know where he needs to take us." And on to more blather. Okay, I thought, we'll do it your way. Soon enough, the guide gets into telling some story and we continue to motor on. obviously heading out of town on a major street that became a state highway or something. After a while, she noticed where we were and got really flustered. She didn't know a good way to get turned around, and I offered no suggestions, just kept driving while she sorted it out. After that, she started doing her job, and we didn't have any more trouble. After we had dropped her off, the passengers and the regular tour guide told me how funny they thought this episode was, and we all had a good laugh. You want to escalate to Tier 3 support? Okay, there's a process for that. Let's do it. I worked in customer support for a tech firm, and if I may say so, the company is good at it and I am good at it. We have customer satisfaction stories and data to prove it. Our customer support is what gives us a competitive advantage in our marketplace and makes us very profitable. One day I get a phone call from a customer. I say, "Hello, and his response is, "I want to talk to third-tier support." Okay, we have a process for that. What seems to be the problem? No, you don't understand. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to third-tier support. Actually, I do understand. You want to talk to third-tier support. I'm setting that up. But there are a few questions I have to ask you, and if I don't know the answers to those questions, then they aren't going to call you. They are going to ask me to call you back and get those answers. So, what seems to be the problem? He explains to me the problem. Have you tried this? No, you don't understand. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to third-tier support. You know, the guys who aren't working from a script. I assure you, sir, I'm not working from a script. Have you tried this? Yes, I did. Now may I talk to third-tier support? Have you tried that? Yes, I did. Now may I talk to third-tier support? My problem isn't on your script. There is no script for this problem. I'm asking you this question because I thoroughly understand our device, and I know from previous experience that that might solve your problem. Have you tried this other thing? What makes you think that this other thing is going to solve the problem? Well, I've been doing this work for a couple of years now, and I have a pretty good idea of how these things work. So I thought this other thing might solve the problem. Look, I have a master's degree in computer science. I want to talk to somebody in third-tier support. Now, I don't want to disrespect computer scientists because computer science is a hard field to get into. But everybody should understand that there's a big difference between being a computer scientist, computer programmers, system administrators, database administrators, network administrators, etc. Those are important topics. Computer programmers, by way of contrast, write computer programs. They need to know about computer science topics. But computer science is a means, not an end. The same is true for all of the other specialties that I mentioned. He may be a really good computer scientist, but that doesn't mean he's a network administrator or a system administrator. Those are different specialties. Someone who says, "I have a master's degree in computer science, I don't need to talk to you," knows a great deal about what he knows, but doesn't know what he doesn't know. I've been around long enough to know that there is a great deal I don't know. Just try this one other thing, and if that doesn't work, then I will give you to third-tier support. Promise? Promise. I can hear him typing in the background, losing it. I can hear when he hits the return key because he hits it hard. Then he picks the phone up and says, "It's working now." Great. You still want me to escalate to third-tier support? Then I get a torrential outpouring of him losing it. Since this is a family channel, I won't give the details, but rather leave it up to your imagination, gentle reader. Then he hung up on me. Wouldn't you know it, he got a customer satisfaction survey, and I got straight zeros. I got called into my boss's office, and we had a conversation about this call. He was upset, and I can't say I blame him, because he also gets graded on our survey scores. He called in some third-tier support people to listen to the recording for training and quality assurance purposes, and they said I did everything right. He, me, did not deserve that rating. They also said that there was no way I deserved that mistreatment and that the survey should be tossed out. Unfortunately, the rules are the rules, and that score counted. So I lost my quarterly bonus, a couple of $1,000s. However, the big boss felt awful about the whole affair, so he and his wife took my wife and I out to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. We had a lovely time. At the end of the evening, I noticed that he paid for the meal with his personal, not his corporate credit card. I asked him about that. His response was golden. "I'm in a position where I could probably get away with it, but that wouldn't be right. What happened to you wasn't right either. This dinner is my way of making it up to you as best I can, and I figured if I'm going to do that, I might as well take my wife and your wife along. Why not?" He knew I was married because I have the ring. I love that guy. worked with him for years. I would have liked the couple of $1,000s, but the acknowledgement that I had been done over was a great second place. Don't send you any small contracts? Got it. This was several years ago when I was working as an installs coordinator for a department store. If you wanted work done, anything from installing a toilet to building a garage, you'd come to me. I'd give you a quick estimate, and if you were on board after that, send a contractor out to your site to do exact measurements, if needed. Then I would work out your exact material and labor costs from there, quote you out, and keep in loop with the contractor, mostly so I could help work out anything that might delay the work. Contractors are paid a set rate, usually per unit, foot, or square foot. They also get a flat $50 fee for the initial site visit, whether or not the customer goes through with the project. I occasionally got calls from frustrated tradesmen who felt these $50 visits were a waste of their time. But since those visits typically took under an hour, including travel, and I was making $3 over minimum wage, I couldn't drum up a whole lot of sympathy for these complaints. Most of our contractors came in two categories: bigger companies that generally had a liaison who wanted to keep their business partners happy, and individual tradesmen or father and son businesses where the person I spoke to on the phone would be the one doing the work. I was fortunate enough to be trained by my predecessor who remained at the store, but had stepped down to take a less stressful position, so I could go to him for advice, and more importantly, he helped me quickly build a rapport with the people I worked with. This would become important because I had wide discretion in how I divided up the jobs, but many of our partners were fairly specialized or simply preferred certain kinds of work, a fact that our systems weren't set up to accommodate. Officially, I was meant to rotate through lists. I used this plumber last time, so use that one this time, etc. There was no metric in place to track that I was doing that, however, nor any interest in enforcing it. As a result, I could send more work to people I knew were in a bad financial spot, skip somebody who I knew was planning a vacation or had a sick worker, etc. Maybe a couple months into the job, I get a phone call from a bigger construction company on my list, turning down a site measure I had sent him to fence a yard. I pulled his file up on screen for the call and realized that he had kicked back the last 3 jobs I'd sent to him. He demanded I stop sending him these chicken little jobs. I'm not interested in anything under $100 grand. His file listed him for fences, decks, garages, etc., but there was nothing in his contract about a minimum job size, and I'd have been surprised if there was. So I just told him sure and ended the phone call, then put a note on his file not to use the company. The price of lumber doubled that summer, and the combination of 4 refused site measures in a row, along with not doing any work for us in over a certain number of months, automatically ended his preferred contractor status with us, meaning he was paying more for materials. He paid close enough attention to his business to stop work he didn't like from coming in, but never noticed that his material costs went through the roof overnight. I know the company had a rough couple of years after that. As far as I know, they're still in business, but I hope that dude has mellowed out a little in how he talks to the people who help put work across his desk. We were never a big slice of his income, but I like to hope my small, malicious compliance helped put just a little more of a squeeze on him. Am I the jerk for telling our mutual friends the real reason I adopted a cat? I, 28 male, recently agreed to foster a cat who I was told had massive behavior issues and was going to be taken to an animal shelter if I didn't agree. I expected spitting and hissing and biting, not litter box trained, etc. Cat arrived with nothing to her name. Cat is 5 years old. No box, bowls, toys, food, nothing but a flea collar that was clearly months old and too tight. Cat was absolutely filthy. Ex-owner told me that they couldn't provide money at the time for me to set the cat up, and I allowed it as I had been told that they were in a nasty financial position. We agreed to keep a tab of vet bills and food bills to be paid. As they're leaving, she mentions the case of expensive energy drinks she stopped to pick up on the way. I was gobsmacked. I set about getting what the cat needed and began to try to gauge its behavior. Turns out this animal is the sweetest, smartest, kindest being I've ever had the pleasure to know. Took Cat to the vet, and Cat is extremely ill and underweight. Got her medical shampoo for her skin, antibiotics for the infection that she has, and then called her ex-owner and told her to send me her microchip details as I would be keeping the cat. She says that's fine. Cat was never chipped anyway. Doesn't pay anything bar $40 of the bills. 2 days later, turns up at her job with hair and nails done. I sat on it for 6 weeks and stewed until I found out she had been speaking to someone about a kitten. I didn't embellish anything. I simply told two of my closest friends what happened and why the cat stayed with me. The truth spread like wildfire, and most people have now turned their back on her. My only intent was to stop her from getting another animal, not for it to end up like this. I feel like I could be the jerk because this has affected her work and friendships. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This sounds like a person who should not be trusted with anything other than perhaps a cactus. Not your fault that people spread gossip. Am I the jerk for ruining a happy family moment by correcting a lie? So here's the deal. I'm 16, male, got step-siblings, 18, 17, and 15. My dad married their mom when I was 8. About a month before they got married, which is when they became engaged, they sat the four of us down and asked for us to give our blessing on the marriage. My step-siblings all did and were eager for it to happen. I was not. All four of us had lost our other parent before that point. Their dad passed about 3 to 4 years before that point, and my mom had passed 2 years before. At this time, Dad asked me why, and I said it was all too fast for me, and I wasn't ready for a new family to come in and take over what used to be us and Mom. They told me my reason wasn't good enough, and they were ready, and I would thank them one day. They have forever talked about how special our family is because we chose to be a family. We got to pick our family, etc. I've told my dad and his wife both how much it bothers me when they say it like that because I hadn't chosen this. They told me I would come to understand with time. It's been 8 years. I don't feel different than I did 8 years ago. I didn't choose them, and honestly, I likely wouldn't choose them if I had a choice. They all like to ignore the fact I said what I did and instead say all four of us kids agreed and were excited for the wedding. Even my step-siblings will say I chose them and they chose me. Only half of that is true. My dad and his wife celebrated 8 years married with some family. Everyone else was having a good time, but I was annoyed hearing all about how we were family by choice and how we chose each other. So I spoke up. I said everyone else chose, but that I had said no when asked, and I was told my reasons weren't good enough, so they'd choose for me. I said I understand I didn't get to dictate my dad's life, and that's fine, but the least they could do is not lie and say I chose this marriage and family. The mood soured. My grandparents could not believe Dad had dismissed me way back then, and then talked about how happy I was about it. My dad, his wife, and my step-siblings said I spoiled a happy family moment with my outburst, and that makes me childish and mean. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. For an emotionally difficult problem, you have a pretty accurate view of it. I think if they'd shut up about the choice thing, you'd have let them have their happy marriage. But going on and on about it suggests they're overcompensating, and it's not fair to drag you into it and lie about your feelings. That's hurtful and selfish. They're constructing a narrative that makes them look better without regard for how it makes you feel. Telling the truth was the right thing to do. It made them uncomfortable, but they deserved it. Maybe now they'll think twice about dragging you into the happy chosen family story. Neighbors parked in my driveway, so I got them towed. So my neighbors had to get together last night. There were a bunch of people and a bunch of cars. I don't know how this even crossed their minds, but 2 of the cars were parked in my driveway. One in the driveway itself, the other half on the curb, half on the driveway. I found out because when my girlfriend pulled up to the house, she couldn't park in the driveway, so she parked further down on the curb. I immediately called a tow truck and got both cars towed. After midnight, we're both in bed and the doorbell rings. Neighbor is at the door. Without greeting, demands to know where the cars are. I told them they got towed. Dude loses his crap. 3 people that were standing further back, who I assume the cars belong to, are also mad. One of the dudes comes over, starts getting in my face. I told him, I'll happily call the cops if he doesn't get off my property. They are seething, but they leave. The next morning, my phone is blowing up. Neighbors asking what happened, some telling me to check Facebook and Nextdoor. I think he spent the whole night posting because there's a whole dissertation about what a jerk I am. Poor neighbor wanted to get together with his closest friends, and what's the big deal if they parked in my driveway without asking me? Anyway, neighbors seem in agreement. Forget this dude. He hosts get-togethers a lot, and frequently our street is filled with cars around his house, so it makes driving dangerous. Strictly speaking, I didn't need to tow the cars. My girlfriend parked on the curb. I wasn't going to drive that night, could have just let it slide. If they asked me, I would have let them park there. But the audacity of people to park in the middle of my driveway demanded action in my eyes. Am I the jerk? Edit. For people asking, I didn't talk to them first. It kind of goes without saying, don't block people's driveways and definitely don't park in one. I'm not a new neighbor. I've been here for almost 2 years. I'm cordial with all my neighbors, friendly with some. This particular one is straight out of central casting for that one jerk neighbor. Brags about his cars and boats, talks crap when his team wins, gets angry at everyone when they lose, can't handle losing in poker, but will tell you about if he wins. Not the jerk. This sets the precedent going forward that parking in your driveway is unacceptable behavior and won't be tolerated. Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Well, what would you have done? Would you have gotten their cars towed or not? Please let us know. Sure, I would have, but first I would have keyed it. If you don't like it, leave. Don't mind if I do. I want to preface this by saying that this is my dad's story. I wanted to share it to honor him since it's Father's Day and I just got off the phone with him. He's so much happier now. My dad has been a mechanic for almost 30 years. We immigrated to the US 10 years ago, but in my home country, he was both a mechanic and a workshop manager since he studied engineering in college. When we moved to the US, he chose to move all of us, which meant he had to work very long hours, 10 to 13 hours, 6 to 7 days a week, as a mechanic to make ends meet. He could have maybe gone back to school and gotten a better job, but he wanted all of us to be together. Anyway, my dad had been at this job, I won't name which one, but for a big shot car company as a mechanic for years. He had another job before this, but had to relocate after we moved into an actual house. Yay! He was really their star employee. He overworked himself to the point of fainting at work, and all he did was ask his coworker to bring him water and continued working. He never took lunch breaks. He would eat food quickly in 10 minutes and would go back to finishing tickets. None of this is healthy, and I'm not glorifying it at all. I wish he didn't have to do all of this to make ends meet. After almost 7 years at the company and never having gotten a raise, my dad never asked. He didn't even know he was allowed to. Him working himself past his breaking point and doing the work of 3 people as one person, he was told he would get $18 an hour. He was making $15 an hour. This would have been huge for our family, and we would have gotten to refinance the house and lower our mortgage. He worked overtime a lot, so he was excited to make more. Then a mistake happened. Not even my dad's fault. Another worker forgot to put oil in the engine before letting the customer drive off. Obviously, the car broke down and it fell back on the company to reimburse the customer. They decided that they would take it out of the workers' paychecks because everyone should have been paying attention. They told my dad they were canceling his bonus. He finally decided to stand up for himself and said that's not fair. They said if he wishes to instead, he could pay for a portion of the engine's cost himself if he wants to keep the bonus. He declined, which was met with, "Just leave if you don't like it." They assumed that would be an empty threat because not only was this during the height of lockdown, but obviously no man working those grueling hours would be able to afford to just leave. But that's exactly what he did. He simply said, "Okay," and walked out. They tried saying something, but he told me he paid them no mind and drove to the nearest gas station. He then called his old company's manager. This manager was very kind to him. I remember when I was younger, I even went to his kid's birthday party, and that was the first birthday party I had ever gone to. I didn't have any friends in the beginning due to my accent and kids being mean. Apparently, his old manager, who had moved to California himself, then came back to our home state earlier that year, had offered my dad a job when he moved back. This was at another big-name car company, but I won't name which one. My dad had initially told him that he couldn't just leave his workplace since he had been there for years and felt responsible for the company. I honestly don't understand this company loyalty stuff, especially if they pay you like crap, but maybe I'm too young to understand that. Anyway, he explained the situation and asked if the position was still available. My dad got started at his new job at $20 an hour with a raise based on his performance and a sign-on bonus. He didn't even have to interview, just got hired on the spot. After 3 months, he got bumped up to $25 an hour. I always worried about him overworking, but he kept reassuring me that it's a lot less on him even though he still works 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. He tells me a lot of times he's making house calls, so he gets to drive on company time, which relaxes him, and that the workload is a lot less for a lot more. I hope he's telling the truth for his own sake, but he does sound happier. They've even let him borrow the company's cars during winter while the roads are icy, because my dad has this beat-up 1999 Toyota Camry that creaks and rumbles while running, and his manager said he doesn't want my dad risking his safety to drive to work. He told me today that they're making him do managerial duties now too. It's what he used to do before we moved to the US, so it's really easy for him, and that as compensation, they're giving him 25% more than what he was getting before. I'm so happy for him and very proud of him. I'm glad he's not overworking himself and left behind that crappy company. They've tried reaching out to him to match what the new job was giving him 4 times, but he's declined every time. They even said they'll give him a sign-on bonus. Obviously, he declined. Mess around and find out, I guess. If you really are going to threaten your most hardworking employee with the "if you don't like it, then leave," then you should be ready to accept the consequences. No, you don't deserve any 2 weeks' notice. No, you don't deserve any more of his labor. My dad deserves everything though, and I just want to share his story because I love him so much and I'm so proud of him. Father's Day Malicious Compliance. 18 years ago, to the date, I was over at Dad's house and I needed a wrench, and coming from a long line of mechanics, I knew that he'd have one available as I didn't have my kit in my car, so I asked to borrow one. Dad, of course, said yes, handed me the mechanic's toolbox, and just out of habit, I opened it and immediately noticed that a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet end wrench was missing. Again, I come from a long line of mechanics. Every tool has its place, be it in a drawer, a box, or outlined on a pegboard, and I thought it was weird that Dad lost a wrench out of the spare house toolkit. "You're missing a 7/16, I pointed out, showing him the missing slot. Now Dad, being Dad, just had to mess with me a bit. So looking me dead in the eyes and beaming a huge smile, he responded, "It was there when I gave it to you." Mind you, I hadn't left the kitchen. I hadn't so much as shifted my feet. I knew he was lying. He knew he was lying. But it had been ingrained in me since childhood that losing a tool is horrible. Now, I knew he was messing with me and I let it go. But from that day forward, anytime we needed something, he'd make a comment like, "Sure wish I had that 7/16 wrench that Coyote lost," or, "You know what would fix it? That missing 7/16 wrench." This went on for months. So one day he made the usual "tease me for losing a tool" comment, and I warned him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Say it one more time, old man, and you're going to get that wrench every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of your natural life." A few hours passed. I asked him to hand me a tool, and he said, "I can't. You lost it, remember?" I laughed and played it off, but it was on, and that was 18 years ago. Today, being Father's Day, he just received his 52nd Craftsman ratchet end 7/16 wrench. Since that day, he's tried telling me he knows that I didn't lose it. I knew that already, that I don't need to buy it. Oh, yes I do. And he's occasionally tried to say it was a different size or item to get a different present, but we both know that's not happening. They're everywhere. Every coffee can, junk drawer, cabinet, toolbox, pegboard, or spare nail in the house and garage contains a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet and wrench. You know how they say you're never more than 8 feet from a spider? Well, in Dad's world, you're never more than 7 feet from a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet and wrench, because there are at least 2 in his truck at this point as well. When will it end? When the old man passes on. The last wrench will go in his cold hand so that he can tighten the bolts and heck, because I warned him. Darn it, I warned him. Happy Father's Day to all of you with weird traditions, jokes, and relationships with the man who made you who you are today. And if you need a wrench, hit me up. I know a guy. Am I the jerk for kicking my husband's friends out of the pool? I'm a working, sole income earner for the time being of 2. My husband has been struggling to find a job for 16 months. I don't know what's up with that, and so I've been solely paying for everything. As you know, it's summertime, and the kids want to go to the beach every weekend, but I'm busy working oftentimes, and my husband won't bother to take them unless he uses my car, which is a no from me because I need it for work. Anyway, so I put money towards renovating and upgrading our old pool so the kids could use it. Thing is, once the pool was ready, my husband started inviting his friends to come over and use it for hours. They'd basically taken over, preventing the kids from even using it. They complained about being denied the pool several times, which caused them to get upset. So what I did was talk to my husband about it, and I told him to limit his friends' usage of the pool. He flipped out on me, saying it's his house and his water too, and I can't control what he does or who he brings over. I got mad and in return told him that tomorrow the kids get the pool, or else I will ban his friends from it completely. He side-eyed me and said, "Fine, they can have the darn pool tomorrow." Well, the next day, my daughter calls me crying, saying Dad brought his friends over and refused to let her and her brother use the pool again. I was livid. I literally left work right then and there and came home. I saw him and his friends in the pool messing around. I just screamed my head off at them, telling them to get out. My husband tried to get involved, but I told him off and had all of his friends leave. He blew up at me for acting like a lunatic and said I was being controlling and shameless. I said I already told him to let the kids use the pool, yet he ignored my request. He yelled at me saying, "Just because I paid to fix the pool doesn't mean I own it." He then went back inside and started calling his friends one by one to apologize on my behalf, since he said I was too shameless to do it myself. He then left the house and hasn't been back yet. Edit. 1. I paid for the pool to get renovated and upgraded. 2. He and his friends are always there using it, giving me and the kids no chance to spend some time in it. 3. He and his friends trash the pool every single time. They drop food and drinks, and I end up having to clean it myself. He left the house and hasn't been back yet? Good. You're not the jerk. Yeah, I'd be looking at divorce lawyers over this. 16 months unemployed, trashing the home with his buddies, being a jerk to the kids, and turning it all into a blowout power struggle with his wife when she objects? What, if anything, does this man bring to a marriage that would make this relationship worth saving? Not the jerk. It would be one thing if he enjoyed the pool with his pals now and again, but your husband has no job, and if he's messing around in the pool this much, then the kids can't even use it. He's definitely a jerk with a sniff of deadbeat about him. He's being an awful dad too by hogging the family pool, which sounds like he barely contributed anything towards, so the kids are literally crying for not being able to use it. What a jerk your spouse is. Tell him to get a darn job ASAP. Am I the jerk for not fixing my mother-in-law dinner? I'm 28, female, and my husband is 32, male. We have 2 kids together, a 3-year-old and a newborn who just turned 2 months old. We recently closed on a home which is outside the city in a rural area. My mother-in-law hasn't ever liked me, simply because we have different beliefs. She feels that my place should be taking care of the home, being barefoot and pregnant and catering to my husband. I'm the oddball. His sisters and sister-in-laws are all stay-at-home mothers. Fine, but that's not for me. My husband was aware that I wasn't a stay-at-home kind of person. We balance our careers and taking care of our house and our kids just fine. My mother-in-law has something to say about everything regarding our household, and though my husband has told her to stay out of our business, she hasn't. His parents live almost 3 hours away depending on traffic. On more than one occasion, she's complained about my cooking. She didn't like this, she didn't like that. It was too this, it was too that. But then would clean plate of the same recipe when I cooked other times and say nothing. She and my father-in-law are here visiting for the next month along with my brother-in-law, his wife, and their 2 kids. My mother-in-law is a Karen. From the moment she stepped into our house, she's pointed out things we should change and what we should add and what we don't need. I've done well ignoring her, up until a couple of days ago. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner while everyone was out back on the deck. She asks my husband when I was returning to work. He told her I already had. She looks perplexed. She shames me to him for putting our kids in daycare, she assumed. She goes on about how if we hadn't moved, she could still be looking after the kids. My father-in-law's health has been at a critical point since last year. Her watching our kids was taken off the table due to us concluding that it would be too much on her to handle. My husband explained this to her. She asked who's looking after our kids. He tells her my mother. She says, "That jerk knows nothing about raising kids. For God's sake, her own daughter doesn't know how to take care of a house properly or fix a decent meal, so your kids are not learning anything there." My husband comes to my and my mother's defense and tells her that he will not tolerate her disrespect in our house and that if she continued with that kind of attitude that she could leave. Dinner is ready. The moment I sat down after delivering everyone their plate, minus mother-in-law, all eyes set upon me. I told her, "Since I can't fix a decent meal, there's no need for you to eat what I cook." There was a moment of awkward silence before my husband slides his plate over to her. It was wrong, but I grabbed it before it even reached her. It caused an argument between my husband and I. Mother-in-law starts crying, and I tell her to get over it because she can dish it out, but she can't take it. Hubby expects me to apologize. No one is talking to me besides sister-in-law, who thinks it was hilarious what I did. Not the jerk. Whoever has a problem with what you said can leave, period. Your mother-in-law does not deserve an apology, you deserve one. All she's done is insult you, and now your mother. Stand your ground. Right? OP isn't running a hotel, she's working and she has kids. Where do these freeloaders get off turning up for a month? And why has her husband allowed his family to do this and then insult her? Not the jerk, but throw them out. They can stay at a hotel or go home. Karen doesn't understand how franchising works. In my late teens, I worked at a popular Canadian coffee and donut shop named for a former NHL player. I'll call it Trevor Linden's. There are many throughout my town, but I worked at one particular one near the waterfront. One day I took my grandfather to the clinic for his weekly checkups. I didn't like waiting around the office, so I went down to the Trevor Linden's by there, got a coffee, and started reading a magazine waiting for his call that he was done and ready to go back home. I was in no way wearing my uniform or anything similar to it, but one Karen knew me from my location and began trying to get my attention as apparently the line was too long and they were a bit backed up. When I looked up, she swept the table with her hand, knocking over my coffee and some papers I had spread out, and said, "Break's over." I said, "Forget you, jerk," though I probably wasn't as polite. I wasn't done with that. She said, "You work for Trevor Linden's. You've helped me before. Get off your lazy butt and help me out," and proceeded to give me her order. The manager and an employee came over and asked what was going on here. The employee began cleaning up my coffee from the floor, while Karen told the manager, "Your employee needs to be helping rather than sitting here, drinking coffee and reading." The manager said, "She doesn't work here. She can't help you with anything." To which Karen said, "BS. She helps me all the time at the waterfront location." The manager said, "That's nice, but this is the downtown location. She doesn't work here." When the employee finished cleaning up, the manager told him to get me another coffee, and Karen blew up even more. "What for? She should be working. She's a Trevor Linden's employee. She should be helping me." The manager said, "Yes, she may work at Trevor Linden's, but not this one. Right now she's just a customer. If you can't be civil, I'll have to ask you to leave." Karen fumed, but returned to her seat, and I thought it was over as the employee brought me another coffee. Side note, I have a pretty complicated coffee order, and I was impressed by the employee getting it right without asking me what it was. Maybe he found my receipt or order slip or something, but he got it correct the first time. I couldn't have done that without help. But it gets better. I was at my location a few days later when Karen came in and got in line. When she got to me, I recognized her, but slapped on my happy customer service face and said, "Welcome to Trevor Linden's. How may I help you?" She said, "Get me your manager." She was definitely in for me. I continued smiling and said, "Sure thing," and went to the back and got him. He asked her what the problem was, and she said, "Your employee here wouldn't take my order and was very disrespectful to me." My manager said, "Sure thing, what may I get for you?" acting as if she had meant right here, right now. Karen said, "No, not here. At the downtown location a couple of days ago." My manager said, "She doesn't work there. Why did you expect her to help you?" Karen says, "She's an employee of Trevor Linden's. It's her duty to help all customers at every Linden's location." My manager said, "That's another franchise. We may all be Trevor Linden's, but that's a different location. She has no responsibilities there. Now, is there something I can get for you?" Karen snorted, turned on her heel, and marched out the doors. I was more willing to help out and volunteer for that manager after that. Am I the jerk for not sharing my garage with my girlfriend? I, male 28, am in a 2-year relationship with my girlfriend who's 27, and we haven't had any big problems yet. We don't live together, but she spends a lot of time at my place because she has roommates. I have a 1973 Dodge. It's kind of broken down, and I bought it really cheap a few years ago. The car is not that good, but I honestly have a deep love for it, and I spend a lot of money on it wherever I have some money left to spend. Recently, my girlfriend bought a 2017 car. The car is nice. It's new too, so it doesn't even have a scratch. The thing is, my girlfriend demanded that I leave my car outside when she sleeps over so she can leave her car in my garage. She said that since her car is new, then it's more important to keep it safe. I obviously disagreed. My car might be cheaper, but it's still my car, and I think I deserve to keep it safe because it's my only vehicle. She stated that I'm being selfish because she had to work a lot to make enough money to buy the car, so I tried to calm her down and told her that I could pick her up at her house when she wants to stay over. She'll be able to leave the car in her home's garage, to which she said no, and that she had brought the car to be seen in a new car and not in a broken down one. She then called me stupid and told me I was ruining our relationship for a car, and I answered that she was doing the same. She left and hasn't been answering my calls. Was I really wrong for this, or should I stand my ground? Not the jerk. I would be careful. One girlfriend sold a guy's 1970 Impala while he was out of town so that she could park in the garage. Not the jerk. Your situation was really reasonable. Both of your cars will be safe that way. I think your girlfriend doesn't appreciate your stuff because it's cheap. She may not know how hard you had to work for it, or maybe she just doesn't care. Either way, OP, this is a hill to die on. Not the jerk. She's the one ruining your relationship over a car. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I'd pick the car over her, bruh. Just saying.
My first malicious compliance, the bathroom break bandit. I started my first full-time job while home from school on summer break. I always loved reading the stories on this sub and figured I might be in a similar situation at my job at some point, but I didn't realize it would happen so quickly. During my second week on the job, the guy training me came up to me and told me multiple coworkers had complained to him that I was taking my breaks way longer than I was supposed to be. At first, I was confused by what he was talking about. I thought maybe people had gotten me confused with another new employee, but after a couple of minutes, I realized what was going on. So for some context, the job was in a large warehouse, meaning it could take up to 5 minutes to walk to places like the break room or one of the bathrooms. Because of this, I would always try to use the bathroom right before my break, since there was a bathroom right there and I wasn't interrupting my work. I would speed run the bathroom and start my break about 2 minutes late. Most coworkers stayed a few minutes past the end of the break, myself included. These two things meant that even though I took the same length break as most of the other employees, it looked like I was staying about 5 minutes past my break. Don't like that? Okay. Well, around the same time, I learned that they don't care when or how long you take your bathroom break. You can just go whenever. So after I got the complaints, I stopped taking the quick 2-minute bathroom pit stops before my breaks. Instead, I stop in the middle of what I've been working on, walk 5 minutes to the bathroom, take a relaxing 10-minute bathroom break, and walk 5 minutes back. Repeat this 3 times per shift, and I've gone from stealing 6 minutes of company time per shift to up to 60 minutes, hence the bathroom break bandit. This took place last year. They later trained me on forklift, cutting down on how long it took to get to the bathroom. I have a new job now with higher pay, but I do slightly miss that job because it was pretty laid back, and besides this one incident, people were pretty friendly. Manager tells me I need to know which rules to follow. When I was in grad school, about 15 years ago, I was working nights and weekends in a convenience store. It also happened to be the first time the fuel prices shot up to $4 plus per gallon in America. Because of this, there were quite a few people who pumped gas and drove off, prompting our company to institute a pay-before-pumping policy. The company was a small regional chain of gas stations/convenience stores in a largely rural area. They were concerned about any loss, so much so that in the company newsletter, they announced firing someone for regular theft from the store. The theft in question was when an employee refilled her fountain drink while on duty. Another example was that we were required to do money drops anytime we had more than $200 in the cash register. Another employee was fired because she was robbed and hadn't done a money drop. There was approximately $205 in the register at the time. So when this new policy came out, I wasn't about to risk my job over someone filling up and driving off with a tank full of gas on my watch. My manager was really good about working around my needs for class, research, etc. while working on my degree. So I put up with this and wanted to keep my job. One night I'm working and someone pulls up to get gas. The machine beeps, letting me know someone is trying to fuel up before paying. I won't pre-authorize because policy. Customer comes in and demands I let him fill up before paying. I explain the policy and he lights into me with perhaps every word he knows. I'd like to say I was professional, but I returned his hospitality. The next day when I show up for work, my manager is waiting for me, clearly unhappy. He is a regular customer, and we want to keep them happy. I explained to her that regular customer or not, I wasn't willing to risk my job over a drive-off when people are getting fired for losing such little sums of money. Manager states,
I see what you're doing, but you have to learn which rules to follow.
now she's been with the company for about 15 years. She could get some leeway. I'd been there less than a year. I had no leeway. So I asked her, please put in writing which rules I am expected to follow and which rules I am not. Or put in writing which customers are exceptions to policy and which ones are not. Until then, I'm following all of the company's policies. I'm not surprised that she wouldn't put that in writing. Fast forward about a week. I'm working solo on a Sunday afternoon when someone I've never seen before comes in and yells at me for not pre-authorizing his pump. I explained the company policy and that he would have to prepay just like everyone else. Customer claimed he was with corporate and that he should be allowed an exception. I informed him that if he really was from corporate, he'd know about this policy and would expect me to follow it. I even pointed to the policy statement in the window for him to read. The customer yelled at me and stormed off before I could reply. Turns out, this stranger was from corporate and even the VP of the company. He called to complain to my manager about my refusal to let him pump first. She repeated my arguments as to why I refused to risk my job and that he should be glad to know they have such loyal employees. VP said that policy was meant for regular customers and not for employees. She replied,
Please put into writing which rules we are expected to follow and which ones we are not.
My annoying girlfriend records us eating dinner to post on social media. My girlfriend, who's 33, and I, 26, male, have been together for about 2 months. I'll give it a bit of backstory. My girlfriend is an absolute gym shark and has a pretty good fit as she works out really early in the morning every day. She also records these workouts and posts them on her social media. She has a whopping amount of followers for being a relatively normal person, meaning she's not a celebrity. About 130,000 followers to be exact. Most of her videos are usually thirsty guys complimenting her, but I bite my tongue because she's with me. She also records lots of videos with me and takes lots of pictures with me and posts them on her social media too. She loves making dancing videos with me too, which I fail at horribly. Now back to the story. We went to a pretty nice restaurant and she started taking videos and pictures of me and the food. I didn't mind, but it was getting annoying, so I told her to put her phone away. She said no, and when our entrees got to the table, she started recording live. I told her quietly to turn it off as I didn't want to be eating in front of people live. She laughed, thinking I was joking, and I said I was serious. She scoffed and said no. I put her phone with the camera facing down and told her that I didn't like being recorded while eating and told her it was annoying. She said she didn't care and told me it's her social media and she can do whatever she wants. I got frustrated and told her that it's annoying and that nobody cares what she's eating. She argued with me that it wasn't true and showed me how many views she had. I told her it was just a bunch of thirsty guys. She said that wasn't true and ignored me. She decided to just record herself eating, and we finished dinner without talking, and she was pretty upset. I think I took it too far, but she was being annoying. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Sure, it may be just her social media, but the relationship belongs to both of you. If she can't even be present with you and is instead looking at everything as a potential viral video, that isn't fair to either of you or the health of the relationship. I'm not usually one for ultimatums, but this situation may just call for one. You're the jerk. You sound really insecure. Thirsty guys? What, so you think she can't have actual fans just because she's attractive? Plenty of guys would give anything to be with a fitness celebrity, which is pretty much what your girlfriend is at this point. And instead of encouraging her and being supportive, you let your own insecurities get in the way and you're trying to hold her back. I hope she finds a guy who is secure in himself and who supports her. You should really stop being so controlling. You totally give me creeper vibes like my ex did. He didn't even want me going to the movies with a guy friend because he was so insecure. Like, look, dude, I don't care what kind of issues you have from your past, but there's no way I'm letting you take it out on me. So yeah, I'm not proud of it, but in the end, I did cheat on him just to hurt him. That's what happens when you're an insecure little guy wasting the time of a grown woman like me. Take me as I am, or you'll miss me when I'm gone.
Well, don't you sound lovely?
Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
You shouldn't post pictures or videos of your loved ones on social media if they're not comfortable with it.
Unless it's on our TikTok, I'm gonna post a really funny video of Reddit boy on there soon. Don't mess with an engineer. I worked for a company that provides specialized equipment used in manufacturing. To protect my anonymity, I'll have to be vague about what exactly this machine does. During my time working in this field, I got to know many clients who would need these machines installed and serviced. One of these customers we'll call Jake. I later left the company for a different job, but Jake apparently kept my number. One afternoon, I got a call from Jake that they wanted a new unit installed and another unit needed maintenance and wanted to know if I was available. I let him know that I left the company, but that I could pass him on to someone who could help. He tells me he'll pay me 2 times my current rate to install the unit over the weekend. He lets me know that the company has increased the rates of installation and the company just can't afford it. The instructions they sent over just aren't clear enough, and their engineers are scratching their heads trying to figure it out. He begs me to consider it, and I agree. For more context, installing this unit can take a good few hours or up to a day on your own. The company gives you 2 options. You can either pay for an engineer to come and install it, or you can save money and they will send instructions so the customer's own engineer can install it. The instructions aren't easy to follow, and it's company policy that if someone has started to install the equipment, the supplier wouldn't get involved since they couldn't verify that any of the pieces were broken. This will be important later. I drive down on the weekend and they show me the boxes of equipment. I set to work and I make good progress installing the unit. Around 6 hours in, and I'm stopped by Jake, who greets me. I let him know I'm nearly finished, and he tells me, "Sorry, but they just don't have the budget to pay you." He understands my frustration, but his engineers can take it from here. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I wanted revenge. There's a small button inside the unit that changes the unit into test mode. This is done to perform maintenance on the unit, but it's impossible to configure the unit with the button pressed. It's only possible to reach this button using a pin, so it's not easily pressed during installation. Because of this, the installation instructions don't mention it. There's really no way of telling the equipment is in test mode, it just won't work normally. I think you can guess where this is going. I click the button, collect my things, and leave. Monday morning, I get a call from Jake. I declined. I knew my old company wouldn't get involved since I already started installing the unit. I knew his engineers would never figure it out. I just had to let him stew. A few days later, with many missed calls, I finally pick up. Jake is furious. He asks me where the heck I've been and why I haven't been picking up my phone. He tells me they can't figure it out how to configure the machine and they need my help. I tell him, "Why is this my problem? You won't pay me." He told me he was sorry and they would work something out if I could get there as soon as possible. I told him, "Oh no, you're going to pay me 7,000 pounds up front before I do anything." I'd never felt this powerful before. He screamed at me for a bit and hung up. He called back a day later after saying that he's sorry for how he acted and said that if I could come fix it, he would pay me, in a totally defeated tone. He tried to fight it, saying he'll pay me when I was done, but I was having none of it. After a bit of back and forth, he agrees to pay me. The money hit my account and I came in the next day. The look of confusion over his face when I took out a pen and changed the unit from test mode was priceless. It was even more priceless seeing his reaction to me packing up my tools and leaving after only 20 minutes of configuring. Easiest 7,000 pounds I'd ever made. Don't try to mess with a professional problem solver. I remember a builder decided not to pay his crews on a house he was building. At first, the foreman of each crew put a lien on the house, about 8 guys. Then, each and every worker put a lien on the house, about 70 guys. So when the buyer found out there were nearly 80 liens on the house, he backed out of the purchase. Then the builder had to track down every one of them before he could sell the house. Problem being, a lot of these guys who didn't get paid moved on to other crews, other professions, even other states. It was years before the builder could clear all the liens before he could sell the house, and he had to pay taxes on it the whole time. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she doesn't need to be with her sick friend? So my wife has a friend from childhood called Anthony. I'm being completely honest here when I say that he and I don't get along. It's not like he's rude or disrespectful, nothing like that, but all I feel towards him is annoyance, sort of speak, because of how much my wife sees him. He lives alone and now suffers from a medical condition that requires him to go to the hospital regularly to receive treatment. I found out that my wife promised him to go with him to every chemo treatment as support. She said it's a commitment she made to be there for him during this rough time since he has no one else besides her. Okay, I had no issue with that at first, but then this started affecting me. Example, I can't go see my friends because I have to stay with my son on this day so that my wife could be with Anthony for his treatment, etc. I've talked to her about it, but she said that Anthony needs company and that she's just being supportive, and this is when he needs her the most. I let it go, but last week was kind of just my last straw. Anthony had another session, and my wife wanted to go with him and asked me to stay home with our son. I told her I had to meet up with my mom and sister to eat lunch and that I won't be home. She said she needed to go be with him, and I kind of flipped out on her and said that she doesn't need to be with him and could literally go see him at home the next day or something. She threw a fit and called me cruel for forcing her to leave Anthony by himself since she's all he has and that I was making her look bad. She also said my appointment with mom and sister wasn't as important as his sessions, but I decided to just leave and end the argument. She ended up staying at home, but kept ignoring me when I got back, calling me selfish for not letting her be there to support Anthony with what he's going through. Some of her girlfriends think I'm being a controlling jerk with no consideration for Anthony and what he's going through. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Your son should be a higher priority than you going to lunch or hanging out with your friends. Also, chemo is serious. Nobody should have to go through it alone. If Anthony has only your wife for support, so be it. Also, why couldn't you just take your son to lunch with your mom and sister? He probably would have liked to get out of the house for a bit, see his family and spend time with you. Jerk move, OP. Looks like I'm early. I'll pop back in a few hours to hopefully see that you've been completely called out for this. You're the jerk. Do you even have a heart? Info. Why is the child care of your son primarily your wife's responsibility? You're the jerk. You just conveniently can only see your friends on days that Anthony has chemo treatments? Why can't you plan around them if they're pretty regular? It's no different than if it was your wife's family member. Also, why can't your kid come with you when you go to see their grandma and aunt? You are the tiniest bit of inconvenienced by all of this. Meanwhile, someone very important to your wife is sick, and you're mad at her for spending time with them? You sound jealous and petty. I find it hilarious how everyone is calling you a jerk for this. But this is Reddit, so what do you expect? If the roles were reversed, they would still be calling you the jerk for putting another woman over your own wife, and they'd definitely be accusing you of cheating. They'd call it a red flag and tell her to leave you. Edit. Downvote me all you want. You know it's true. Need to get off here now. My lunch break is almost over. I'm a senior financial analyst. I've got a beautiful wife at home with the kiddos, and I hope OP finds a good one someday like I did. But in this day and age, good luck with that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Bruh. Am I the jerk for taking the diamond out of an heirloom ring for my girlfriend's engagement ring? I, 28 male, have a 32-year-old sister and a 37-year-old brother. My grandmother left my mother her diamond engagement ring. My mother always said she would leave the ring to my sister, who's 32, but my sister recently told her that since she has an engagement ring from her husband and she's not really into jewelry anyway, why not leave grandma's ring to one of our brother's kids? My sister is child-free. A couple of months ago, I told mom I was going to propose to my girlfriend, and she offered me grandma's ring to do it with. My girlfriend was amazed at the size of the rock, but didn't like the ring. It was a traditional solitaire setting in white gold, and asked if we could take the diamond out and use it in something more modern. She picked a new platinum setting with a couple of smaller diamonds, and I was glad to save money. When my mother found out, she was surprised, but not upset, and asked if she could have the setting back. The inside was engraved with my grandparents' initials and a message. I didn't have any use for it, so I said sure. This weekend, my fiance and me and my sister and her husband were visiting our parents for Father's Day, and my sister was excited and asked to see Missy's ring. When my fiance held out her hand, my sister had a surprised Pikachu face and said she thought I was proposing with Graham's ring. I told her it was Graham's diamond, and she said, "Oh," and that was it. On Sunday, I noticed my mother was wearing the old setting, but it had a blue stone, a sapphire. I asked her what this was about, and she said my sister took it to a local jeweler and had the new stone put in and gave it to her as an early birthday present, and mom was all happy she could still wear the setting, which she had missed having on her finger. She used to wear it all the time. I confronted my sister later that night and asked her what her problem was. She said nothing at first, but I kept pushing, and finally she said, "Look, if I knew what you were going to do to Graham's ring, I wouldn't have told mom to give it to you." I said she didn't. She said mom should give it to one of the nephews. Sis said that's because she assumed Mom would want to keep it during her lifetime. Then she said if all Missy and I wanted was the diamond, that was our prerogative. But the setting was a piece of family history and sentimental, and she didn't want it getting tossed aside. I thought she made me look bad and said so. She told me to get over myself. I called her a jerk. She told me if I'm getting married, I should think about growing up and walked off. And I feel like she spoiled my engagement gift to Missy. She made you look bad? No, you made yourself look bad. She made herself look good. You clearly missed the importance of the piece and just plain old dropped the ball on asking Mom if it was okay to reconstruct the piece. Of course, Mom seemed okay with it after the fact. What else was she going to do? Wrestle the ring off your girlfriend's finger and demand it be put back together? She and your sister handled this with grace. You were at best clueless and then made a Pikachu face when you pushed your sister for doing something nice for your mom and didn't like her answer. You're the jerk, OP. You took what you wanted and then threw a tantrum because your sister did something nice for your mom so that she could keep wearing her mom's ring. Info: why are you so upset they got a new stone in the setting if you didn't want the setting? 'Cause he's tired of her always saving the day and treating him like a little kid, according to his comments on this post. Seems like there was no problem until he made it a problem. Edit: OP, your sister did a nice thing for your mom, and that made you mad. Why exactly? You should have been happy that your sister found a good use for that part of the ring that you didn't need, and that it made your mom happy. It was literally a win-win situation. You got upset over nothing. It was extremely childish. Your sister is right. This kind of behavior is not a good sign in someone making this kind of life-changing commitment that marriage is. You need to grow up and start thinking about other people, not just your own fragile ego. You should apologize to your sister for how you acted too. Tell her that you recognize she was just trying to do the right thing and that you had no right to be upset by it, and promise to try and handle your emotions better in the future and to be more considerate of other people. She'd be so impressed with that level of maturity coming from you, and it would help set a healthier tone for your relationship moving forward. I'm sure she's not perfect, but in this situation, you're the jerk. But you can start to fix that by apologizing. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. Bro, I'm still trying to figure out why he got mad at his sister. Get corporate involved over something minor? If you insist, enjoy that negative rating. This happened last night, but the results played out this morning. I was parked at our yard in Dallas and didn't feel like walking a mile to get food. 90+ degrees at 8:30 p.m. Why, Mother Nature? So I ordered a pizza to be delivered to our yard so I could snag it from the guard shack and munch away. Placed the order online and paid, and was informed that it would be about 55 minutes for delivery. Okay, cool, no big deal. I can relax and wait for the call that the food has arrived. I even confirmed with the store about the address and made sure that they would call me or had the guard call me when they got there, to which the lady told me it was cool. Fast forward to 10:05. I get a text telling me that the delivery was passed off to DoorDash and they would be there in a few minutes. Okay, not who I anticipated, but all right. 10:15 rolls around and I get another text telling me that they couldn't find the address, so they were taking it back to the store. Not cool. I call the store and ask for the manager. She started off rude and stayed there. Sir, our delivery driver couldn't find your location, so we had to bring it back to the store. You need to provide a better address. Excuse me, ma'am, but when I spoke to a manager around 8:45, I was assured that the driver could find his location, and was even assured that the driver would call me should any issues arise. Now, since I'm out on getting food, can I get another driver to deliver it or get a refund? I had explained. We're about to close for the evening. It's not our fault that we can't find where you are located. You should have given the address clearer. As for a refund, I'm afraid we can't do that as we attempted delivery and was unsuccessful. If you want, you can call corporate and take this issue up with them. Good luck. Click. The snarky undertones came through loud and clear. Oh, it is on. I called corporate office, and while on the phone with them, I left a scathing 1-star review on their page. Corporate lady was the complete opposite of snarky jerk at the restaurant. She assured me that it would be dealt with, and she will get to the bottom of things. Fast forward to this morning, about 2 hours before I posted this, I get a call from that same store. It was a manager that came in to see my scathing 1-star review on their page, and an email from corporate demanding the manager from last night lose her job, and that I, the customer that got done over, get a full refund issued immediately. Aftermath: lady did lose her job. I got the full refund plus an additional $40 in coupons and was told that if I order from that location again, they will see to it that my instructions are followed precisely and not passed off to someone else. Never mess with a driver and his food, or bad things happen, like you find yourself jobless. No drinks, no tip. So I'm working at a huge event location, and I'm the guy responsible for refilling the bars with drinks every time the bartender makes an order, and also picking up the used glasses and pints to bring them to the washing station we have. In general, I'm the guy that helps the bars running there. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 of us in a shift, but other times not. There can be nights that the 5 bars are open and the place is full with around 3,000 people. Just to give you a taste of what the job looks like when the place is packed on a typical Friday or Saturday night, imagine that you have to carry and deliver around 20 beer kegs, each with a weight of 65 kilograms, 130 pounds, and around 60 cases of beer and soft drinks just when you start your shift. When something goes out at the bar, the bartender makes a new order that I have to deliver, and this goes on all night long from 17 till 06, and sometimes, if there are any GOA parties, till 11. Also, just to give another taste of how big this place is, during a normal shift, according to my phone, I'm walking 28 kilometers, 17 miles. Where I come from, we call this job runner. The underwritten law there is like this, that each bartender has to give 20% of the tip they make each night to the runner, because without a runner, he would have no drinks to serve. Nobody can really know who's really giving 20% of their tips, but that's another story. But every bartender is giving something, and usually it's a lot, and all sides are happy. Then comes a new guy, and staff manager explains to him the unwritten rule, saying exactly these words: "You don't want to have problems with any of the runners, so be fair." When you're doing this job for a while, you know approximately if the tip you get is going to be good or not. Fast forward. Huge metal festival with all bars open, 3 different stages, outdoor bars, etc., plus after-show parties. The place is packed like there's no tomorrow. This festival is happening every year, and it's one of the best shifts. Even though a lot of work and it's around 17 hours of work, yes, it's a lot, but walking home with $1,000 in tips is worth it. So the new guy has a spot at a very good selling bar, was providing and delivering drinks there like crazy. After a long shift, when everything is done and they do their calculations, he brings the money to the treasury, looks at me and says cold-blooded, "Thank you, have a good night. Tonight was a good night to work," and walks away without giving me my tip. That was it, folks. I kept doing my job every time he had a shift at one of the bars like nothing happened, and I was just waiting for a full packed night to come. And finally, after a week, it was time. Again, the place is fully packed. His first order arrives in my tablet. Sadly, I was too busy to deliver. 1 hour passes. He tries to call me on my phone. I pick up, standing next to a subwoofer. 1.5 hours go by, and second order arrives from him. Didn't even deliver the first one. Sadly, I was again too busy. Then after half an hour, the shift manager calls me on the radio. The shift manager was lazy doing this job before getting a better position there. "Hey, what's going on? Why has he no drinks to sell?" "I'm busy with the rest of the bars. The guests can go to the other bars." "Are you serious? That guy can only sell water and everything else is empty." And then I reply, "He can sell water, but no one tips a bartender for water, right?" Small pause on the radio. "You can't be serious. He's leaving no tips for you guys?" "Yep, you guessed it." "I'm sending this idiot home." Positive. Am I the jerk for asking my son to get a paternity test? My son, who's 18, has found out that one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knew nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and now he's just expected to accept everything, no questions asked. My daughter, who's 20, is good friends with this girl and knew about her pregnancy but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady, but she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative. He spent a lot of money on her because she would ask for gifts my son couldn't even afford and convince him to use one of my credit cards to buy it. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with her by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks that she only does good and doesn't believe that she's convinced her brother to use my credit card or that she even cheated. Showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I saw her there at my door, visually pregnant, I knew she was going to say that my son is the father of her kid and immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there's a paternity test proving that it's his kid. My son backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father and was upset I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex started crying, saying, "You always assume the worst of me," and that she went 8 months of pregnancy alone, and the least we could do is ensure she's taken care of for the betterment of his kid. I do agree that if it is his kid, we're going to ensure mom is doing well to ensure the baby is doing well. But I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again and only to find out that the kid isn't even his. Am I the jerk here? Everyone sucks here. He's old enough to steal your credit card. He's old enough to handle his ex and possible kid on his own. Everyone sucks here. I'm gonna go against the grain and say everyone kind of sucks. When you said ask your son, I was under the impression that you would be asking him to consider getting a paternity test. Not that you were intervening between the mother on his behalf. That's too much. Maybe if he was a minor, but you overstepped. He needs to handle this himself with your support. You should not be leading these kinds of conversations. Info. Do you have proof or admittance of the cheating and manipulation you referenced above? I will agree that it's kind of sketch that she waited till 8 months to say anything, but you also kind of sound like the kind of mom who no matter what, whoever your son is dating is not good enough. If that is the case and the ex-girlfriend knew it, that could have fueled her to not tell. You're the jerk. What is wrong with you? Do you even have a heart? To even imply that she could be lying about who the father is shows what kind of a monster you really are. Honestly, even if he isn't the dad, you should not be intervening whatsoever. Somebody needs to take some accountability for that baby, and if another guy won't take responsibility, then your son should. You trying to stop that makes me literally sick. Do better. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read the comments we get about this one. Am I the jerk for telling my dad and his wife that her kids are not my brother and sister? My parents divorced when I, 16 male, was 4. My dad married Becca when I was 7 and stepped up to be dad to her kids, who at the time were like 3 and 5. My dad tried to ban the word step from our house. For a good 3 years, he told me I shouldn't call Becca my stepmom or her kids my step-siblings. He said I could call her some other mom variants, but her kids were my brother and sister, period. Becca also chimed in on this crap, and she told me countless times that I was her kid's brother, and therefore, my mom should be expected to be more involved with them. My mom, who I lived with half the time, but now I live primarily with her, was expected to buy them gifts and invite them over to our house and treat them like part of her family. She was expected to call them my brother and sister, and I guess act like they were her stepkids versus her ex-husband's stepkids. To me, they've always been step-siblings. Becca is my dad's wife or stepmom, though stepmom to me is more of a close title since my friends who use that are close to their step-parents. I'm not close to Becca or my dad. I ended up choosing to stay more with my mom because I couldn't handle Dad and Becca constantly bringing their kids' inclusion at my mom's up to and around me. They would either talk to me about it or would corner my mom at exchanges in front of me. My mom would always try to minimize contact, but my dad and Becca made it a point to be present at the moment I would get to my mom's house or car. My mom is significantly better off financially compared to my dad and Becca. I always assumed it's why they pushed the idea of my mom buying them gifts and including them in her life has been such a big push. They know I have stuff Becca's kids never get, and they know I get cool experiences. The last time my dad and Becca brought it up, I got mad. I had already told them to stop countless times in the past. I told them to leave my mom alone and leave me out of it. I told them Becca's kids were not my brother and sister. They're my step-siblings, and I was going to keep using step regardless of how much they like it. I also said they're not my mom's kids, therefore not included by her when she has me. I said they needed to get over that fact, that they can't demand my mom buy gifts like she has 3 kids or open her home like she has 3, that she has just me, and by demanding crap, they're making it really toxic. I think the point that got them the most mad was saying that they are not my brother and sister. They've always been big on step being exclusionary. To me, it's just true though. No hard feelings towards Becca's kids, but step-siblings is how I see them. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for saying that the reason why I don't want to visit my mom is because it hurts to see her happy with her new family? My mom, 37 female, and I were deeply close. She used to say that I was her pride and joy. I'll turn 17, I'm male, tomorrow, and I've decided that I no longer want to go to her house to visit her and her real family. Some context. My mom had an affair when I was 9. She left my dad because she fell in love with a married man, and the man ended up divorcing his wife and moving in with my mom. My dad has custody of me, and my mom was granted to have me on weekends. She seemed happy to have me and always treated me well. Her husband treated me well too, though sometimes he tried to make me respect him as a dad. As my mom's husband's ex-wife wanted nothing to do with the 3 kids they had, who are 18, 17, and 12, my mom started spending more time. Because her husband had full custody, she sometimes acted like a mother to them more than to me. She would pick them up from school. Never did that for me. She celebrated their birthdays while she was just a guest at mine. It was hard because it felt like I was gradually losing my mom. During her custodial, she was great, but she never tried beyond the minimum when it wasn't her time. I had a swimming competition in 2019. It was at school, but she didn't show up because it was on Wednesday and her stepdaughter had an activity at school. She tried to compensate for it later, but the scar was left there. It isn't healthy for me to be at her house. I suffer a lot when I'm there because they get to have my mom 100% and I only have weekends. They also have a 5-year-old son. It sucks seeing them play the happy family, and even if her husband has treated me good, I see nothing but the man that destroyed my home and hurt my dad. This last weekend, I went to her house and told her that it's not healthy for me to be at her house because it hurts me to see her that happy, and I can't. I also talked about the times that she's missed events because it wasn't her custodial time, so I let her know that I'm never coming back. I also said that as long as she is in the family, we can't have a relationship because I'm afraid they'll make her choose and she'll pick them over me like other times and I'll be hurt again. She started crying and said that it wasn't the message she was trying to send. She said she never meant to make me feel cast aside and that she was picking them over me. She said that I can't do that because I'm her baby, but I told her that this isn't her choice to make. She's called me every day, saying that she hasn't been capable of sleeping and wants to see me and talk. Her husband and kids are calling me the jerk for making her feel guilty for something unintentional. But I made my choice and my dad has my back. Even if you sometimes need the fire, you've got to keep your distance for your safety and not get burned. Not the jerk. You're handling this hurt in a very mature way. Kudos for that. When she suddenly realizes you were cutting ties to her because of her behavior, that's when she suddenly decides that you're her baby and she never meant to treat you that way. Did she never realize how shunned you'd feel if she didn't show up to so many of your life events? She seems pretty selfish, cheating on your dad, then the way she treats her stepkids. I feel for you. Not the jerk. She made her choice, repeatedly, to pick her stepkids over you. You cannot control what others do, but you can control your response to those actions. All the best. I have no time for cheats, so I have less than 0 sympathy for your mother and her new husband. Not the jerk. When in doubt, pay attention to her actions, not her words. She talks a good game, but her years of treating you like her last priority have caught up with her. Don't let your mom or her family gaslight you into believing that you're wrong or that you have to accept it. You have every right to feel that way, and it reflects on her failure as a mother and a wife, not on you or your dad. Kudos to you for putting yourself first. Your mom should be proud, as you probably learned that from her. I have to pay for that 10-cent personal call charge? Done. Back in the days before unlimited mobile phone calling plans and long distance, I had a company-paid flip phone. There were all kinds of fussy rules attached to it. No texting, even though texting was free. No long-distance calls, with one exception, as I'll explain below. No special ringtones, and no using the camera. Like I said, fussy rules. The one exception to the no long-distance call rule was for travel. In my job, I rarely would have to travel to a different calling area, i.e. roaming. But if I did, I was permitted 1 long-distance call per day to call home. That's it. So the day came when I had to travel and stay overnight in a hotel for work. When I arrived at the hotel, I called my wife to let her know I arrived and spent a couple of minutes talking to my kids. Got some supper, did some work in front of the TV in the hotel room, and went to bed. The next day, while at the conference I was attending, I got a call from my home office. As I was in a large hotel, the call dropped, so I had to call back. Didn't think anything of it, went back to my session and enjoyed the speaker. Later, after I got back to the hotel, I called home to say goodnight to the kids. I got the answering machine and left a message. Didn't think anything of that either. The next day, I returned and went on with my life. At the end of the month, I got a call from Finance. Brother P, it's Finance Supervisor. I'm just reviewing your latest cell phone bill, and it shows an unauthorized long-distance call. Really? When was the date? April 3rd. You made a call to my office number at 9:20 a.m., then another one to my home number at 6:15 p.m. Oh yeah, that's when I was at a conference. The first call was to me from the office, but I got cut off and had to call back. I called home from the hotel later. So, how would you like to reimburse us for the call? I beg your pardon? The second call. You have to reimburse us for the unauthorized long-distance call. You have an expense claim from the conference in, so I can deduct it from that, or you can pay directly. How much are we talking about? 10 cents? 10 cents? 10 cents. Would you like that deducted from your expense claim? I thought I was being punked. Seriously. I sat in stunned silence for a few moments. No, you know what? I'll pay you directly, I said, and wished the supervisor a pleasant day. I opened my drawer where I had some spare change, took 2 nickels, taped them to a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, and wrote, "For cell phone charge," and my name. I then took a company envelope, addressed it to the finance office, in a different building, walking distance away, folded the sheet of paper, and put it in the envelope. I put the envelope in the outgoing mail tray, the postage for which would be paid by the company. A few days later, I got a call from the comptroller herself, 3 pay grades above me, and usually wouldn't interact with someone on my level. Apparently, the supervisor complained about me. What's with the nickels? I explained the situation, told her the supervisor had insisted that I pay the 10-cent charge, and I complied. She laughed out loud. The paper, envelope, and postage had cost the company more than what they recovered. The following month, the finance department updated their cell phone policy. From then on, only long-distance charges in excess of $10 had to be reimbursed. Am I the jerk for canceling our trip after my fiance decided to bring her son? I, 33, male, have been with Natalie, who's 32, for 2 years. We're getting married soon, and she shares custody of her 10-year-old son with her ex-husband. Ever since her ex-husband got sick, Natalie kept bringing her son over more often. Sometimes her mom would take him due to work, etc. We've been having issues because of that, because Natalie has to bring my stepson with us wherever we go. We started going out less and less. Since it's been a month since we've gone out, and since her ex has gotten better, I've arranged for a trip to the beach for the weekend. It's supposed to be a couple's getaway. She was excited for it and prepared for everything. The night before the trip, she comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tom is sick again, and he asked if I can take Taylor to spend the weekend with us." I was gobsmacked. I asked what she told him, and she said that she agreed. She then proceeded to tell me that she'd like to take Taylor with us to the beach. I got upset and told her to not bother because the trip was officially canceled. She looked at me shocked, but I told her she shouldn't act shocked and surprised after she successfully ruined yet another opportunity for us to have quality alone time together. She went on about how she couldn't believe that I would expect her to ditch her son since her mom was busy as well and getting a babysitter wasn't on the table. I just shrugged and told her it was done. Then I walked out. I went with the guys instead, and she's been upset with me about it, saying I could have just agreed to let my stepson Taylor come with us, and we would have at least had some family time together while Tom gets better. She said I was the one who messed up. Am I the jerk? Edit info, because I feel like this has gone into a whole different direction. Folks here need to chill out. Nowhere in my post did I mention not being ready or accepting to be a step-parent. Trust me, I am ready, and so far have been nothing but understanding and patient. I love my stepson and consider him as my own, but, and read this part carefully, my problem is with his mom constantly changing plans last minute and not even asking if that's okay with me. And yes, I had to go out with the guys instead. Didn't know what else to do since she obviously wanted some space from me for the weekend, which is alright with me, by the way. I'm not mad about that at all. I just appreciated if she had been a little bit more considerate of my thoughts and opinions. You're the jerk. You marry a woman, you accept her family. She has a son, that's her family. Now it's yours. Get over it or break up. Those are your options. Oh man, I can't believe this chick I'm dating actually expects me to be cool with her hanging out with her own son. Am I the jerk? Oh, for goodness sake. She didn't change the plan because she wanted to. Her ex got sick. Just what exactly did you expect her to do in this situation? Drop him off at the orphanage? Leave him home alone? You're the jerk. You said in a comment that you love her son like your own. Did you call your family to see if anyone could watch him? Yeah, OP, I think you're missing the point on multiple fronts. For one thing, dating someone who has a kid means that that kid is going to have to take priority at all times and will need to tag along. That's the nature of the beast when it comes to dating a parent, especially in this case where it sounds like the ex is like long-term sick and has bouts where it acts up. And OP, if it is how it sounds and the ex passes, what do you expect is going to happen? When that kid comes to live with you full-time, you're not going to get quality time like you think you will. Getaway trips might rarely happen. Having time alone together will rarely happen. Once again, that's the nature of the beast when you're dating a person with a kid. If you can't handle that now, when it's more like a part-time thing, you are not going to be able to handle it all down the line. Get out of this relationship. You're obviously not really prepared for the challenges being a step-parent actually has. OP, you're the jerk for not breaking it off. We haven't been out for a month is normal in parent land. It's completely fine to not want to be a parent at all or even just not right now. Unfortunately, that means not dating a woman that has a kid, even if she is otherwise the perfect woman. The fact she hoped you could bond as a family tells me she's really hoping you'll grow closer and see him as your stepson, which he will be. Whereas your reaction that you need a break from him after spending more time with him than usual because his actual dad is sick. Let alone that your response to all of this is weekend with the boys, rather than talking through your thoughts and feelings like adults. This isn't going to last. The two of you aren't compatible. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiance? Please let us know.
Very incompatible. Time to go your separate ways.
Stop resetting my password. I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there's like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago, we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset, and you can't use a password you've used before. And this was a big change, considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty good, and even the VP. Now this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 other tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we are told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP password because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, "I just got an email from the VP, and they say that you keep resetting their password." My manager's a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email, it says they had to change their password 12 times, and they're running out of passwords that they can think of, and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times. No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this to not be the best use of your time, so we're going to ask you recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that if she wants to dictate sleep schedules for our kids, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom? My wife and I, both in our early 30s, have 2 sons, an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we are also raising her niece, who's 5 currently, because her parents are in rehab. I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife works. When we had our oldest, my wife was a stay-at-home mom for a little over a year, and then she decided to go back to work. She makes more money than I do, and I was really happy to spend time with our son, so I agreed to stay home, take care of our son, and do the housekeeping. After we had the 2-year-old, the agreement stayed in place. My wife still wanted to work. My wife has severe anxiety, and being at home with the kids all day would really impact her mental health. Her niece came to live with us 8 months ago, and it's looking like she will stay for much longer, maybe even permanently. She's lovely, but her parents were horrible, so her routine was basically non-existent. I made a solid routine in our house for her, as in chores, sleep schedule, etc., and she's adjusted really well. My wife works 8 to 5. The kids wake up at 7, then my wife takes the 8-year-old to school, and I'm home with the other two. The 8-year-old goes to bed at 8 p.m., the 5-year-old goes to bed at 7:30, and the 2-year-old goes to bed at 7. A few days ago, my wife told me her niece wants us to move her sleep hour to 8 p.m., same as our 8-year-old. I told her no, because our 8-year-old has more chores, because he's older, and uses the 30 minutes extra he has at night to watch his favorite cartoon without little brother and cousin interrupting him, which they do because, well, he's their big brother. My wife got really upset at me and said that I'm treating her niece unfairly because she isn't mine. I said that's ridiculous. She told me we may someday adopt her and I need to treat her like my own. I told her I do treat her like my own, and a regular sleep schedule is what I maintain for all my kids. It's not like the 8-year-old can stay up later than agreed, or the 2-year-old can skip naps just because he hates sleep. She called me a biased father and a jerk for putting my kids before my niece. I told her if I'm such a horrible father, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom and deal with the kids while I go to work. She was really hurt. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. Sounds like you have valid reasons. It's normal for kids to campaign for later bedtimes. It's also normal for parents to say no. Not the jerk. There's a 3-year age difference. My brother's 2 years older than me, and he always went to bed an hour later. I'd be willing to bet your son went to bed at 7:30 when he was 5. If so, you most certainly are treating her like your own. Not the jerk. I don't know what your wife's problem is, but the 5-year-old doesn't need to stay up any later than they are right now. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister my unused twin bed? I, 26 female, and my sister, Megan, who's 36, have been in an argument for the past day because I refused to give her my twin bed set for her 4-year-old daughter. In the master bedroom of my house, I have a bed for myself and a nice tall twin bed set that I used as a dog bed for my 3 German Shepherds. The bed is super cute and equipped with everything from dinosaur bed sheets to large plushy pillows in the shapes of bones and T-Rexes. Background. Since the first day my sister found out she was pregnant, she's been demanding handouts from everyone in the family. My sister was not, nor is currently financially stable or able to support having a kid. Instead of getting a job, she mostly guilt trips my mother and stepfather into paying for everything she and the kid need. My sister recently moved back into town and was unable to bring most of her things from her previous house due to her having to leave in a hurry. Story. 2 days ago, my sister came and visited me at my house for the first time since I bought the place over 2 years ago. My sister was expecting me to live in, and I quote, a shack, but was quite surprised to find out I live in a quiet, comfortable home filled with nice things that I take care of. When my sister saw the master bedroom, she noticed the second bed I used for the dog and commented on how stupid it was that I spent my money on a separate bed just for my dogs. Walking through my house, my sister treated it like a shopping trip and constantly pointed out things I should give her for her new apartment that my mother and stepfather are paying for. But she seemed to be most fixated on the bed I use for my dogs. She constantly pointed out how her daughter could really use a bed since they would be having to share one until they can afford a separate one for her. The entire time I stonewall my sister and refused to give her any of the items in my house. Eventually my sister left, disappointed and quite fussy. The next day I woke up to messages from my mother, stepfather, sister's friends, and even her baby daddy, all saying that I'm cruel and that it's unfair for me to not give my sister the twin bed, especially if it's not even being used. My stepfather is trying to play peacekeeper and has offered to pay me in secret for me to give my sister the bed as a housewarming present. I'm not interested in giving my sister the bed, nor any of the other items in my house as a housewarming present or otherwise. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Just tell stepdad to buy her a bed. They will deliver it in everything. ETA. And I just tell them I'm not setting a precedent where she thinks she can just go shopping at my house and expect to get whatever she sees. Not the jerk. It is being used. Your sister can sort herself out and buy her own. That's the doggo's bed, and the doggos get to keep it. Not the jerk. Dear parents, Sister has made her choices in life, and you continue to enable her to make poor choices. This is unfortunate as it models poor behavior for niece. I choose not to do the same. The bed is not unused. It is the bed I have trained my 3 dogs to sleep on. My home is not IKEA. Sister doesn't get to go shopping here. This is the final word on the topic. If you bring it up again, expect us to go low contact. Signed, your kid who has her crap together. Customer won't pay, management won't help. In the 90s, I used to work for a delivery company. For some customers, we provided a PC and software to print out labels and upload package information by modem. The contract required that the customer provide a phone line and uploaded the manifest daily so that they could be billed. One customer kept on unplugging or disabling the modem. This meant that every day, dozens of his packages would be picked up and delivered over the next 2 days, but because the modem was disconnected, he wasn't getting billed. A trouble ticket was sent to me, and I went for a site visit to diagnose the issue. The customer was nice at first and said that there was nothing wrong, but as soon as I reconnected the modem and started the upload, in the 90s, when there was a screeching of the modem, he immediately got angry and started losing it on me and telling me that I was rude and disrupting his business. I left. He called his sales rep and made up a bunch of lies about me being combative. The sales rep was cowardly and didn't want to upset this customer, so did nothing. He's supposed to speak with the customer to remind of the contract requirements. A week later, the ticket again hits my queue. I go out there. The customer is still pretty rude, but I tell him that I have to do the maintenance. He informs me that he has to use the phone line right then for an emergency. Contractually, the line had to be dedicated to the shipping computer. He tells me to leave, I do. This goes on for almost 3 months with me getting the ticket, customer having some excuse why I can't use the modem, then telling me to leave. I have to visit the customer each time I get the ticket in my queue. The inevitable ticket comes in. Okay, no problem. While he's watching me like a hawk, I go to a secondary process and download the manifest to a floppy. We almost never do this, so the customer was unfamiliar with the other method. I'm super friendly, don't ever connect the modem, and go about the routine cleanup. I leave. An hour later, I upload the manifest from my workstation to billing. 2 days later, the sales guy is really worried. What happened? I uploaded the customer manifest. It's in the procedure manual for what to do when the modem is unavailable. Because of the huge delinquency, several months, close to $15,000, the customer went to collections. The sales guy was reprimanded. The customer later went out of business. Though this was unlikely caused solely by this event, I like to think it contributed. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my colleague after she called me a princess? At my work, they allow 1 day a year for volunteering. My manager said that we should do a river cleanup or something like that. My colleague pipes up and says, "Oh, I know Kate would enjoy that, but OP wouldn't be keen." I hear this from my desk, turn around, and ask her what does she mean by that, and she responds with, "What? Nothing. It's just that I thought you would be a bit of a princess about it because of lunch." What she means by that is, I always wash my hands before I eat, and that if the food I have is messy, then I will use utensils. So like a few times I've ordered chicken wings and use a knife and a fork. But let me just say, those bones are clean at the end. She's laughed at me about it before, and I've told her that I don't like getting sauce on my hands. This is mainly because it's the office. I don't want to make a mess or be a mess. So I respond, "So because I like to keep my hands clean at work means that I'm a princess and wouldn't do what needs to be done?" She starts to look embarrassed and tells me that I should just drop the topic. But I'll admit I was a bit annoyed, and she hadn't even apologized. So I say to her, "You're saying that even though you are fully aware that up until a few months ago I was a carer for my bed-bound Nan and didn't hesitate to get my hands dirty, so if you don't want to do river cleanup, that's on you." I then went to the organizer and suggested a volunteering company that I had used in a previous company. Apparently, my manager had heard the whole interaction and then called my colleague over to talk about her conduct in the workplace. Nothing serious, just a slap on the hand. The sign-up form went up for the river cleanup. As I'm signing up, she comes over to me and says that I completely overreacted on something that was just a small joke. One other colleague has said that I could have just ignored her. I don't regret standing up for myself, but now I'm wondering if I should have just ignored it or talked to her outside. Edit. I saw a couple of comments mention that I should let people know that this colleague has made comments in the past, including a comment about using my elderly gran as an excuse to be late to work, and also being hostile when I got a promotion and she didn't. Not the jerk. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. She decided to joke around about it publicly, and you answered publicly and proved to her that she was wrong. I don't see anything wrong with that. The only reason why she's upset with you is because she got called out, and now she won't bother you because now she knows you ain't taking any of her crap and you can stand up for yourself. I bet $10 she's done this before, and the person she did it to didn't stand up for themselves, and she got off scot-free. Am I the jerk for calling my half-sister an entitled brat when she said my mom should give her money for IVF? This involves me, 33 female, and my half-sister who's 32. We share a father with different mothers. Our dad was married to my mom and expecting me when he got her mom pregnant. Mom found out and kicked him to the curb, and things were always incredibly awkward. My mom chose to stay single. Dad and my half-sister's mom got married. For a long time, my half-sister and I fought like cats and dogs. She was always messing with me about how her mom was so awesome and I should choose her over my mom, that my mom was the reason we weren't a real family. I resented her for saying that when her mom was the other woman between my parents. I also resented her because my dad expected me to be way more mature than her despite our barely 1-year age gap. So we weren't great to each other. Over time, the resentment from me shifted from what our dad and her mom did and more about how she would act like my mom had no right to be in my life. She never really grew out of seeing my mom as someone who shouldn't have been there. We both married young and both struggled to have kids. Last year, mom gave me some money to go after more intensive fertility treatments, and it worked, and I'm expecting a child with my husband. My half-sister has still been unsuccessful, and we got into a fight recently where she said my mom should be giving her money too, since we're sisters and she's never tried to welcome her into the family. I was enraged hearing that. For years, she's made it seem like my mom should just go away and leave me to be raised by her mom, and then she says mom should have given her money? I told her that she was an entitled brat if she thought that because my mom owed her nothing after the way she has spoken about her for most of her life. I told her to go ask her mommy for money since she's so great and leave mine alone. She started to argue, and I told her that her mom should do it since she's just the best ever, and if she wants a grandchild, this is her chance. She got so upset, our dad couldn't believe I was so unsupportive of her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why in the world would someone pay for their ex's kid with someone else to get IVF? Don't turn in your paper. My kid needs to be noticed by the teacher. Backstory. It's June, and in Bulgaria, it's exam time. All of your final exams, essays, etc. are packed into a week or two. This story is about our philosophy teacher, and more precisely, her homework. She gave us the essay final. Basically, you write an essay as your final. It's cool because it's easy and not really read and remember. It's like, what would you do if something, and why would you do that? You get the idea. She gave us that 2 weeks before the turn-in deadline. That exact deadline was 3 days ago. On to the story now. So a week before the deadline, I was pretty much done, so I decided to show it to my entitled friend. He thinks he owns the world. I made a mistake showing it to him. The only thing he said was, "Nice, that looks great." Nothing less, nothing more. This happened in school. The essay was on my Google Drive. In the afternoon, I'm at home and I get a call from an unknown number. My first guess is that my phone carrier is offering me a new tariff plan since mine is close to expiration. Nope, I was wrong. It was my entitled friend's mom, entitled parent. I guess he gave my number to him. Karen. Hello, are you OP? Me. Indeed I am. How can I help you?
Hey, this is entitled friend's mother. He told me that you wrote a great-looking essay. Is that true?
Me. I guess. I really like it.
Well, can you not turn it in and give it to us?
Excuse me? Why would I do that?
Because my son really needs to be noticed. He's a really bad student.
First of all, her son really is a bad student. One of the main reasons for that is because his parents constantly took him for unexpected vacations without studying for a fraction of a second and going with the excuse, "I wasn't in class." Second, our teachers are not goats and don't graze grass. She'll notice that her worst student is now writing a great essay. Me. I am going to turn in my essay, the one I wrote.
You didn't write it. My son did. You stole it.
Yeah, whatever you say.
All right, we'll be expecting it by Friday.
A day before the deadline. Me. Whatever. I hang up. Of course I didn't. So Friday passed, Saturday, Sunday, and here we go Monday, today, the 21st of June. I already turned it in. Our teacher enters the room, checks if everyone is in class, and starts discussing the essays. Entitled Friend is in the beginning of the list of students, and she goes, "Nice teacher." "All right, Entitled Friend, it looks like you didn't turn in anything." Entitled Friend: "That's not true. I've written an amazing essay, but OP stole it." Me: "What?" Nice teacher: "What are you talking about?" Entitled Friend: "I showed OP my essay, and he stole it. It was on my Google Drive." Nice teacher: "Can you show me?" "No, he stole it." Our teacher is pretty good with computers, to be honest. Nice teacher: "Well, he can't delete it from your Google Drive, even if he stole it. It should be on your drive." Entitled Friend goes silent, and the teacher continues. I'm a bit later in the list. She comes up to my name and goes, "OP, that's a great essay. It's really good. I really liked reading it." She went to everyone from the class. That was the end? Nope. We finished school, and on the way to the bus, I was stopped by a lady. It was the Karen, of course.
Where do you think you're going?
Me: "Home?"
Not until you return to my son his essay and tell your teacher you lied.
Me: "If I say that, that's gonna be a lie."
Shut up. So, just go tell the teacher and everything will be fine for you.
Me: "Excuse me? Are you threatening me?"
Yeah, you stole my property.
So what was the essay about then?
Son?
He can't remember. Facepalm. Friend: "Well, it was about a homeless man." Me: "No."
You changed it. You stole it and then you changed it.
Me: "First, don't yell at me. Second, even if I stole it and then changed it, that means it's no longer his."
Of course it is. Whatever I say is his. My husband is a lawyer. He can take all your homework and give it to my son.
Me, laughing. My nice teacher, who noticed this: "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave OP alone."
He stole my son's essay.
Nice teacher: "He doesn't even remember what it's about. Also, I checked OP's document. It was edited 1 week before the deadline, and your son turned in a blank document."
He stole it.
This is your last warning to leave him alone, otherwise I will call the police.
Fine. Ugh. At least give my son an A. He deserves it more.
Nice teacher, visibly confused: "Sorry, but your son is the worst in my class. That's not possible."
Ugh.
And she walks away. That's it. I can't believe that happened over a philosophy final when we have 12 other classes he can work on. But no, let's do this over a philosophy and not math, for example. Thanks for reading. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.